Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Wareham School Committee. Today is Thursday, March 14th, 2019. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone who wishes? Sorry. The meeting is being recorded and broadcast by WCTV, and an audio recording is being made by Mrs. Ruiz. Okay, now public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to address the committee? No one? Okay, then we'll move on to good news. Do any members have any good news they'd like to share? Mary?
Sure. Dr. Shaverhood actually just shared some good news. 140 children have registered for kindergarten, which is good news.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thank you. Mike?
I'd like to mention, since the last time we met, I actually went and saw the play by the Wareham Drama Club, and it was really good, as always. It was called The Other Room. And it was one of the only plays I've seen, I think, that I've actually kind of learned a little bit about autism, which is really interesting. I'm going to actually watch the movie, I think, and see how it is. Mm-hmm. Also want to share some other good news. I don't know, maybe Dr. Shaverhood might have it in her packet or what have you, but regarding the late bus, as you know, we're going to have the late bus, or we have the late bus to take kids home now, but it's going to be for everybody, right? Not just the kids that get bused in. You can get bused home even if you're not on that list, which is really good news.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Jeff?
Spring sports season starts Monday. I want to thank who's ever responsible for keeping snow off the tennis courts and the rest of the fields. Mm-hmm. I also want to particularly thank Mr. Palladino and Mr. Rodrigues. It has been a much more difficult process to get the tennis team that was successful last year back together, but we're optimistic we can do that, and I should know shortly, but extra efforts by Mr. Palladino and Mr. Rodrigues have been greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to bring up some students. Mr. Palladino, if you could introduce, and then they're going to share with you some of their experiences in Wareham Public Schools.
Sure. So we have Renata Dillon, Colby Paling, and Nick Dix, who will be here tonight to speak to you about their experiences and then answer any questions you may have. So come on up.
Hi. Thanks for coming tonight.
Hello. I'll just start off by sharing my experience as a Wareham High School student. I was a member of the 8th grade dual enrollment. Actually, we all were. The first dual enrollment group of students to start that at the high school. And I really think that it was a really great program to start out my high school experience. So I was able to take 9th grade classes as an 8th grader and then continue that. And I really think that it gave me the opportunity to be in a good position for the IB Diploma program, which I feel like it's benefited me in a lot of different ways. I chose to enroll in the IB Diploma program because at that point, as a sophomore, I was taking AP classes, and I knew that by senior year, I'd probably run out of AP courses, and by taking IB courses in foreign language, English, math, science, history, art, all as a junior and senior, I felt that it makes students look more competitive in terms of a more vigorous transcript as opposed to taking AP courses. I feel that with IB, you can definitely do a lot of independent research and find out what interests you more, whether it's math or if it's biology or something in the humanities. And it actually helped me figure out what I want to do in college and beyond with neurology. So I think that's a really cool diploma program, and I feel that it's a lot more it gives you a better idea of what the real world is like, because you can apply all the concepts you learn in school. So I just wanted to say that about the diploma program. I'm also involved in the Key Club. I'm currently the president, and I just wanted to give you guys some updates in terms of what we've been doing. So the Key Club chapter for Wareham was established approximately 4 or 5 years ago, and we have 51 members as of now. The one experience that I've gotten from Key Club, which has probably been the most memorable so far, was Camp Sunshine, which is a camp in Casco, Maine, where kids with terminal illnesses and their families go to take a break from treatment and to get used to or meet other families in similar situations. And members of the Key Club have the opportunity to volunteer twice a year. And it's a great experience for the volunteers as well as the children who you're constantly volunteering with. And yeah, I don't know if you have any questions or if Colby wants to go.
So what I really liked about Wareham was the fact that I've had a lot more opportunities than I've been able to take, but what I mean by that is that if there's something that I wanted to do, I could almost always find a way to do it or a place that I was able to do it. And what I think is cool about the opportunities I've had was, as she said, we had dual enrollment in 8th grade, but I also was able to take dual enrollment at a college my junior and senior year, which is really cool because it allowed me to take 8 credits of college before I even get to college, which is a really good jump start, and it's a lot cheaper than if I actually went to the college for the first year, which I thought was a really, really cool opportunity, which I know that other schools do, but not as many as should do it. I also thought we had good opportunities with how I did drama, and I had really good chances there where I got to be lead in a large amount of plays and things like that, which has been a big part of my high school experience, which is something that's shown me that I'm going to want to continue that too in college and hopefully after. But even then, just local theater and stuff. So it was really cool that I got to experience that. I also really liked hockey and watching the hockey team grow over the 4 years, because at the beginning, I remember it was a really good program, but as time's gone on, it's expanded into something where the whole school's gotten involved, and it's a really cool thing to see where kind of the whole school comes together to support the team, which I thought was really cool watching that grow. I'm also a part of the chess club. I'm the chess captain, which is a really cool thing. It's not one that's talked about as much, but it's definitely we have a pretty good team actually, and we were 1 point off, I think, or 2 points off of making it to the tournament this year, which was really cool. So I thought that'd be cool to mention. And then another club that I was a part of, which is really cool, is DECA, which I'm actually getting the chance to go to nationals this year. So I've never been to nationals, so I can't speak about how that is. But from the times I've gone to districts and states, it's been a really cool competition that's taught me a lot about leadership and business. And I'm not 100% sure what I want to do when I grow up, but I know that if it is part of business, it's prepared me a large amount for that. And not just business, but any job I could do, if it's teaching, it gave me a job interview experience because it's one-on-one communication in a formal way. It's given me the ability to publicly speak and definitely enhance that. I also was a part of the Model UN Club, which is newer, but it's a really cool club. It's just one of the funner ones, and it's a really nice opportunity to learn about how the government works and different parts of that. I also wanted to mention 2 opportunities I've had that aren't clubs, they're just opportunities I've had. I went to Boys State like Massachusetts Boys State, which was definitely really cool to go to. I got to meet kids from all over and definitely learn about how the government works and like fundamentally how it goes. And that was one of the best opportunities I can say. So that's one I'd recommend to future students to try and reach out for. And then I had the chance to go to Scotland and Ireland with the school, and that was probably the best trip I've ever had, like, in my life, and it was definitely an amazing experience. So that's just a couple of the opportunities I've had that I think if I went somewhere else, I wouldn't be able to have had. So I really like that I was able to do that.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi, Nick.
I'm Nick. So yeah, they went over the academic piece a lot, but I was just going to expand a little bit on that. And Rennie actually mentioned this really quickly, in that, you know, we, in 8th grade, all of us were part of the dual enrollment program where we took freshman level classes. And I think this school has done a really good job of making sure that we always have something to do. So for example, Rennie's in the IB diploma, Colby did dual enrollment last year and this year, and I've been doing, you know, last year I took 5 APs and 1 IB, and now this year I'm in dual enrollment and I have 2 APs and 1 IB. So, you know, it was sort of scary at first thinking, you know, I mean, if I'm ahead, what am I going to do senior year? But there's still been plenty for me to do as far as academics go. Especially a lot of new things, you know, with the IB Diploma program, and then there's some new APs as well, like AP Government and Politics. It was just introduced last year, and I took it. That was a bunch of fun. Definitely not just saying that because my teacher's in the room right now, but. And then on top of that, I'm part of a lot of extracurriculars. Colby talked about drama a little bit already, but of course that's a huge part of my life too. I'm the lead in the musical that we're doing during Mother's Day weekend, so that's, you know, going from thinking about who I was freshman year, going to now being a lead in the musical, it's, I don't know, it's kind of crazy to me. And then some other things, global education has been huge for me. This is my 2nd year as president of Global Education Club. And we do a bunch of things for that. We're starting to do this Race Amity campaign where we're teaming up with a community group where we try to promote, you know, friendship between races, and instead of looking at the differences, looking at the similarities. That's something that's coming up in April. We worked with the Thirst Project in the past, which tries to raise money to build wells in places that need clean drinking water. I'm part of the Raise Academy internship with our new music director, Mr. Roth. So through that, me and about 8 other students, we do work for a nonprofit that Mr. Roth is part of that tries to bring education to places in northern India. So right now I'm in the analytics team, and my job is to grade written responses from the students, and so that's been really cool to be a part of. And also a huge thing in global ed, geez, there's a lot of things with global ed. I recently, this was in the paper like 3 times, but I recently went to a Model G20 summit in Beijing, and that was not run through the school, but I heard about it through Global Education, and so I applied for that, and I got in, and that was amazing, obviously, as amazing as you could imagine. So there's so much through that. I'm the president of Honor Society as well, which I think has really been growing. This year we're part of Relay for Life. We're doing some fundraisers to help raise for scholarships, and there's another thing that we did recently that I was going to talk about that I can't remember now. And then there's the National Organizations for Women's Club. I'm president of that as well, and so that's, you know, it's just, there's so many different things that you can do. You know, if you are passionate about something at Wareham, there's either already a club for it, or you can go and make a club for it. And so I think that's something that's really special. You know, that's not something that can be said about everywhere. So yeah, that's all for me.
Well, I have one question for all of you. Like, when do you sleep? When do you, like, it's really, so as much as we love hearing from Mr. Palladino about everything that happens at the high school, it's really great to hear it from the 3 of you firsthand, yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Mike?
Yeah, I was really happy to see you guys. I didn't expect this, but it was great to see you guys. I see you guys around all the time, and you added even more to the stuff I already knew you did, Colby. That was great. I think you left out. Don't you even host exchange students too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's been really cool. Yeah, that's actually I didn't even think about that because I don't know. To me, it's kind of they're more like brothers to me at this
Yeah.
point because they're like even Paul, who sorry, I should probably say who that is.
We all know. We all know who Paul is.
Named Paul, and he would stay with me, and he even to the like now he'll come back and stay with me, which is definitely really cool. It's like having like a brother from China and a brother from Norway. That's Trig. So that's been really cool. I forgot to even mention that. That's been like an experience in itself, is like getting to know a whole different culture of people.
Yeah, and that was amazing when they did the senior night and they did his anthem, and he had his flag around him and everything. That was incredible. Yeah. Was that? And so you mentioned the chess club. How many kids are in that?
So last year it was kind of around like eight people. And then I know to start the year we had about 20 kids in it this time, which was really cool because you only need 5 kids and 2 subs for a team. But as time went on, it kind of dwindled down a little bit because obviously with every club a couple people leave, but at least 15 people are in the club still.
When does it meet?
It meets Wednesdays and Thursdays after school.
And how does it work? You guys show up and just play each other and
It's welcome to anybody. You can kind of just show up and you just play. And if you don't know how to play, you can come and people will teach you. What's really cool about it is there's a lot of 8th graders this year, which means we can build up the team as it goes on, which was definitely a really good thing for the club.
Right. And I think you're all doing AP and IB, right? So I just have a couple of questions. Just curious, which of IB and AP, which do you find the most challenging?
Well,
Which is the toughest?
okay, so I'll go first.
Yeah.
I find IB a lot more challenging because I took a couple of AP courses as a sophomore, and what I have to say about that is the workload, just like IB, is, there's a lot of work, but it's just kind of like you learn the information, you take the test. IB's different is they expect you to learn all the information, apply it to a real life scenario, and you learn about different global issues around the world. And like I said before, it's harder because you also have to, in addition to doing a written test, like the AP exams in May, you also have to get like written assignments, like internal assessments, and you can basically research whatever you want, but IB has certain requirements and different things and different formattings that you have to submit in addition to doing the exam. So you're also graded on the exam, and you're graded on either, it could be an oral presentation or a report. I recently finished my extended essay, which was a 30-page paper, 4,000 words.
Congratulations.
It was a lot of work, but it kind of gave me an idea of how to pace myself. I started the paper in November. It was I spent the most time on that more than anything I've ever done, but it taught me some valuable lessons that I'll definitely take to college in terms of like pacing myself and stuff. So.
And do you guys have anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, I'll say, obviously, Rennie's doing the full IB diploma, which means two full years of 7 IB courses, and that's probably the hardest thing that you can do. But if you're not looking at doing the diploma and you're looking at it course by course, like comparing one AP to one IB, it's not always that easy. So for example, I only have one IB class. I'm in IB mathematics, and I'm really good at math, so I don't find that as challenging as something like AP chemistry or AP computer science. And as Rennie talked about it a little bit, but with like, there's essays to submit as part of it. So maybe if you're a student who likes essays more than tests, you'll do better on an IB, like on the IB grade, as opposed to AP, which is just a test. But if you prefer tests, you might want to go with AP. And so I'm really glad that there's you can still decide between the two, and I hope it's something that as IB grows, I hope that AP doesn't fade away, because they're different, and they're for different people, and so it's good that I was able to choose my path, and Rennie was able to choose hers, and then Colby with dual enrollment, he was able to choose his.
Would you add to any of that, or?
Well, I didn't take IB, so I can't speak to that as much. But to me, when I took AP, I struggled a lot because of the amount of work that I had. And I found that kind of moving towards dual enrollment more was the best option for me, just because it was a setting that I was more equipped for. It was just because I'm more of an outgoing person, so it was easier for me to thrive in a new environment, whereas with AP, the workload was a lot for me to handle. Even with, I like to think I have good time management, but even with that, it was just a lot for me to pace myself with. So I guess what I have to say to that is that I think when you're looking at the options we have, like dual enrollment and IB and AP, it's all about measuring yourself and your strengths and weaknesses and deciding based on that, and not necessarily what the program has to offer, because I think all of them are really good options for anybody.
All right, and kind of like a follow-up question. So that's I want to know which was more challenging. But of the two, which do you find you actually learned more? Whoever took both.
Okay, I mean, so I took both, as well as Nick did. But yeah, I mean, I probably learned more from IB. I mean, like I said before, AP is just kind of memorize. And IB is more discussion based, and it's more of you choose what you want to discuss. You choose what you're interested in. You run the classroom essentially. So you're going to learn more because you're talking about things that you actually want to learn more about. And I think you get more from that because you can actually choose what specifically interests you, and you can expand upon that. And then that's where you make sort of your own self-discoveries with the extended essay that I was talking about before. Out of anything, I could choose to write 4,000 words about anything I wanted to, and I chose to do it on scientific research, neurology, and what I was able to learn from that and get from that is something that I couldn't learn from an AP course, because I chose what I wanted to learn more about.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say for IB Math, we had to write this paper. It was 8 to 12 pages, I think.
Yeah.
And you had to choose some topic that you're interested in, and then you have to relate it to one of the topics that we learned about in math. And so that's definitely, that's something that doesn't happen with AP. And so it is nice, because like I said, I only have one IB course, so it's hard to generalize from that. But, that is something that I'm glad I was part of.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm thrilled that you're here. Thank you for taking your evening to be here. Public education is a huge investment by taxpayers. I wish we could just have every taxpayer watch this, because they would realize what a great investment they have made. You're incredibly articulate representatives of your high school. By the way, Colby, the chess club for me was a highlight of my high school, so I get it, okay? Mike has asked some great questions about IB. I guess I have to ask this of you because you just took the IB Math. But one of the courses that I wished I'd existed when I was in high school was Theory of Knowledge.
Yeah.
Have you taken that course? Are you taking?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Well, I was told that course was designed to, in part, get students to question everything.
Yeah.
So now that you're okay, now that you're questioning everything, okay, what is the most interesting thing that you question, and perhaps you didn't even get a good answer to your question?
Oh my gosh. So I would have to say that Theory of Knowledge is probably the hardest class I've ever taken, because there is no answer.
Welcome to the real world.
Yeah, so that class, so we have to do, basically you learn about the different areas of knowledge, whether it's humanities or the natural sciences, ethics. And the good thing about TOK is that like you try to generate questions that can be applicable to any given scenario. And so that's making connections with like current global issues or past things that have happened in the past. You can connect it to like a knowledge question, and you learn that it's really not an exact science. You can really question anything. So yeah, it's a hard course.
So it's the toughest, but is it very enjoyable too?
Yeah, because it gives you like the other classes, it gives you a pathway to kind of go with like what you want to learn about, but you can also generate questions in particular areas. Like I have a classmate who was really interested in math and like, are there infinities bigger than other infinities? And she would find a way to apply that to some mathematical concepts. So it's really just questioning what you want to question.
So I have a question for each of you. It's a little off the wall, but I'm going to beg you to be honest. I know it may be difficult, but hopefully you have nothing to lose at this point in being honest, right? I've been very closely involved with the Wareham Public Schools now for well over a decade. I have been led to believe, and I see all sorts of anecdotal evidence, that there's something special about the culture, the educational environment of the high school that makes it really inclusive, that makes it really welcoming to diverse points of view, to diverse people, just tolerance, whatever you want to call it. It's a wonderful thing. And unfortunately, I've had people go off to college and realize, whoa, it's not like that on my college campus, and they wish they were back in. So if that's true, and I see you nodding your heads that it may actually be true, how did that happen? What's special? What is special about that culture and that environment, and how do you keep it going?
I think that what you just mentioned there with that I mentioned it a little bit before with the race amity presentations that we're going to be doing with Global Ed, and that's honestly a huge thing that the group, I wish I knew the name of the group that came to us, but is that Wareham, we're doing these presentations not because there's a problem at Wareham, because there isn't. Obviously nowhere's perfect, but it's very inclusive with everybody. But that's something that the community group noticed, is that you live your 12 years of public education in Wareham, and then you go into the real world and it's completely different. And so that is something hopefully that can address. As far as why, that's a good question, definitely. But I can absolutely say it's true. I can go around and just talk to anybody I see. Obviously people have their friend groups and who they're closer with, but there's very little hostility, like, oh, they're in their clique, oh, they're the losers, like, oh, they're the cool kids. It's really not like that at all. I'm super close with losers, cool kids, all the like, it's just not. It's not, the
It's okay to be a nerd.
Yeah, exactly. Like the high school, like the TV high schools that you see, where it just, at least from my perspective, obviously, it really is special about Wareham, I would say.
Colby, anything to add?
I don't know. When you say that, it makes me think about a lot, because I've heard so much about what goes on like in other schools, not anything bad, but I've just heard how people are shocked about it, and it doesn't make sense to me, because I've grown up my whole life in Wareham, and I've seen that it's never been a thing to me. It's never been special. It's been what you should expect. It should be equal. Everybody should be that. And I think that's what's special about Wareham, is that we hold ourselves to a higher standard without even trying to. It's just something that we start early and stick with, because I think it has to do with that we have a diverse community. I think it has to do with that it's just, we've grown into it. It's something that's been integrated into our society from the past to now in so many different ways that it's really not an answer of a one why, but it blows my mind how special it really is. Because I go to dual enrollment, I do this. And to me, being in Wareham, I don't even think twice about it. I don't think twice about differences in culture. I don't think twice about that. But then you hear about all the things like in the news and stuff like that that shows that it might be different. But for me, it always confuses me when I hear that stuff, because for me, I've grown up in this where it's never been a problem at all, which I think is really special. So I guess to say why would just be to say it's just a part of who we are. We've always been that way, and I think we've always been moving towards that way if we weren't before, which I think is what makes Wareham so special in itself and gives us so much opportunities, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think what's special about Wareham in terms of the sense of community that it brings is how people support each other with whatever they're involved in, whether it's drama, whether it's, the hockey team doing really well, or a different sports team, or if it's Key Club doing something, supporting, Key Club does a cafeteria and custodial staff appreciation day, whether it's any of the things that the clubs or the sports teams do or the drama club does around the school. Everyone, no matter what you do, they find a way to support each other, which I think's really nice. I mean, I think that's what makes it really special, is that people don't really find themselves in a bubble. Everyone kind of just finds a way to support everybody, and I don't think there's a why to it. I think it's just people think of everybody as like one group, one school, and I don't have anything else to add.
I will say something I think that probably adds to it is the exchange programs that we do. I'm going to be up here again later tonight talking about the trip for next year that we're doing through Global Ed, but not even just that, but also with the students that we bring here. Like, we had 6 full-time exchange students this year from China, Norway, Netherlands, one partly from Spain, and last year we had 2 from China. And then also we're doing this exchange program with Australia, where some students are from a high school in Australia. They're coming here for 2 weeks, and then we're sending students there for 2 weeks. And then we always have at least 2 or 3 batches of Chinese exchange students, like 15 or so of them, who will come for a week or 2. And so it's just, there's always something going on at the school with that type of stuff. And it's, you can, obviously, classroom education is super important, but, you can read about how Chinese culture is different, how Norwegian culture is different, but at Wareham you can live it. You can see the differences. You can see the similarities as well, because there's so many similarities. People talk about the differences, but it's so easy to get along with people. And I think it's because of that culture that you bring. Even if someone's from another country or doesn't speak English that well, you can still have a great time with them.
One of the things that I think of when I think of that is how we're talking about how there's no separation in people. And what I always think is funny is when I tell people that I'm in drama and then I tell them that I'm also in hockey, I'll go to other schools and tell them that, and they'll be like, how did you do that? That's weird. If they're on the hockey team, they're like, that'd be weird. And then if they're on the drama club, they're like, they'd never take that kind of thing. And it's I've never even thought about it twice. It's maybe it'll jokingly, but no one's ever actually made any comments about me being on both. It's never been a problem for me. So I think that's something else that's really cool. And how she said, is we all support each other in what our interests are. So my hockey teammates will come and watch the plays, and the people in the plays will come and watch the game, which I think is something that's really cool. It's like one family, and that I really like.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You make me proud to be sitting here.
Yes, I agree. And I'm not just proud of all your accomplishments, but I'm just proud that you're good. You're just really good people. That is, and you're going to be really successful. Emily, did you have something to?
Yeah. So college, guys, all 3 of you going to college. That's crazy. Neurology, mind blowing, right? Get it? So which colleges have roped you guys in?
Well, I just got a rejection from a college about an hour ago, but other than that,
Their loss.
yeah, no, there's been some good. I got into UMass Amherst, and I got into Worcester Polytech, and then I was and then I was waitlisted from Georgia Tech and waitlisted from Northeastern, and I still have 4 more to hear back from. So ask me again in like a month.
Yeah.
I'm still deciding what I want to do when I grow up. I have a lot of ideas. I mean, I guess I'm growing up soon, but
No, you have time.
I guess. So for me, the problem is I applied to like 10 schools just because I didn't know where I wanted to go. And I've heard back from 8 of them and got in. The other 2 I haven't heard back from. So right now I have absolutely no idea, but I think I'm going to look at them a lot. Right now my top choice would be UMass Amherst. And then maybe Westfield. I'm still looking at them, but that's what I'm thinking so far.
Yeah, I got into the UMass Amherst Honors College, and I got into Stonehill's honors program. I still have to hear back from 8 other schools as well, but I hear back from Holy Cross on Saturday, and then a bunch of Wellesley, BC, the rest of them, they're all next week and the week after, so I still have a lot of waiting to do.
April 15th is still a big date, isn't it?
May 1st, I think.
Oh, is it now
Yeah.
May 1st?
You have to decide by May 1st, yeah.
Mike, did you have something else?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up colleges, and you had mentioned the academic resume and such, building it up with IB and AP and such. And how does it work when, let's say you've taken AP classes and you've done well on the tests? I mean, do those credits transfer over to these schools, or is it selective? It may transfer?
Yeah, well, there's been a big shift recently where a lot of schools will take 5s on tests. Even high-tier schools will take 5s on AP tests. And then if you look at more upper middle tier, it's sort of 4s and 5s. And then everything else will take 3 and up.
No, when you say take, meaning that you can bypass certain classes when you get there?
Yeah, well, either you get the credits for the class,
Yeah.
or you can bypass it. And most places you get the credit.
Okay. And so you got the big 3. You got AP and IB and dual enrollment. And I'm always saying, in my mind, it seems to me, I'm asking this as a parent, actually, with a kid that's going to be, looking to go in college.
Right.
And they, I always hear, well, they may take the credit for IB or AP. But when you take the dual enrollment at Bridgewater, isn't that like locked in? I mean, that is real college credit.
So for that was like a big thing for me, because when I took my first AP class, I didn't do so good on the test. I didn't do horrible, but it was like an iffy if they were going to take it or not. So when I heard about the dual enrollment opportunity, I was really excited about it, because that's something I can track over time, my grade, to see if it's more likely they'll accept it or not. Whereas with AP and IB, which is big for me, it was the test that mattered. So with dual enrollment, because that's like what I did the most of, I really like that I can kind of watch and make sure I get A's in my classes and stuff and keep track of it that way. And it was perfect for me too, because since I'm taking it at Bridgewater, it's a lot of state schools will take that credit. I know that some schools, like as you move up, depending on your grade, might not take it. But the best part is when you're doing that, you're taking mostly gen ed classes because it's your first year, as most college students would do anyways. So what's really cool about that is you can kind of track your grade, and it's most likely that if you go to a state school, it'll kind of transfer over. And when I was talking to a lot of like college recruiters and stuff like that, they were talking about it, and they said like high C's and up, they'll most likely take. And then like if you get A's, it's like guaranteed credits. And even when they don't, you can use those for like humanities credits and stuff like that, which and on top of that, they're cheaper than the actual college classes themselves, like in living on campus and all that, which was like huge for me when I first saw about it. So for me, because I was so worried about like the test, it was just a better option to just take dual enrollment, because it was like a guarantee for the course.
Yeah, I'll say,
But it's depending where you go.
I think more colleges will take AP than dual enrollment, but with dual enrollment, it's more clear, you know? If you take the AP test, it's like, oh, I got a 4 on this. What colleges will take it? What colleges won't? But with dual enrollment, it's like, you know this college, they'll give you it if you pass, they won't give you it if you didn't, or they won't give you it at all. You know, it's more clear.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. And when these colleges review your transcripts, is IB, does that like a good selling point? Does it really add to the resume, you think?
Yeah. You can.
Yeah, I mean, so I think depending on the selectivity of the school, obviously if you're applying to like really, really selective schools, they will probably view it equally. It really depends on the school. They're either considered equivalent to AP, but the diploma program itself, it's considered more valuable than AP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Something to look into with IB is that some classes are standard level and some classes are higher level. And I assume as we go, because this is only the second year of IB, so as we move along with it, there's probably options to either take higher or standard. But with certain classes, the classes right now, they're either only standard level or only higher level. So that's another thing you need to look at is, will a school take standard level and higher level, or will it just take higher level, things like that.
Depends on the test.
Yeah, it's usually the test will be different, and maybe you'll have another, like, for math we have to write 1 essay, but for higher level you have to write 2. So things like that.
Mary?
So I just have one thing to add as being a parent of children who went to college. Be very careful in your selection when you think about finances. You don't want to be in debt for the rest of your life, so just think about that too.
Definitely,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, I was at the 8th grade orientation, and I got to hear the department heads go through the syllabus, the curriculum, the courses that were being offered. It was a drop-jaw moment the more I thought about it, because I'm not sure where, certainly on the South Coast, maybe even in the Southeast, you could find a high school that is offering so many AP, so many IB, so many honors, so many electives that, as you said, Colby, anything you want to learn, basically, you can learn it at Wareham High School. So I think, yes, we're lucky to have you, but I also think you were lucky to go to a place that offered so many things to you.
So thank you. I'm glad you took all my good news that I was going to share, because on my list I have the Key Club trip to Camp Sunshine. I'm glad that you were here, because I didn't know what Camp Sunshine was.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for explaining it. So that's really great that you guys did that. I know Colonel Stanton is here, and I know he had. So that's awesome. And Nick, I read lots about you in the newspaper, and I didn't know that was an opportunity that you pursued on your own. So good for you. I'm glad it was successful. And Colby mentions that he's going to nationals for DECA. He doesn't mention that he came in first in his category in order to get there. So congratulations to all of you.
It's all that hockey, right?
Yes.
Just kidding. Drama, maybe?
But thank you for taking time out of your obviously very busy schedules for sharing all of that with us. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Great job, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if the committee's interested, but I can tell you how many AP and IB exams our students are signed up for.
Okay.
So we have 70 AP exams that kids will participate in, and 64 IB exams coming up, just as an FYI.
Wow. Thank you. All right. Does anyone else have any good news to share?
That was a lot.
That was a lot of good news, yes. I just want to give you the opportunity if you have it. Okay, so next on the agenda is the report of our student representative, Emily.
Yeah, that actually covered a lot of my good news, but spring is here. The spring fling is next weekend. Spring sports, we went over that. But sadly, for some of us, MCAS dates are coming up. But the upperclassmen don't have to worry about that. But don't worry, air vacation is 27 days away.
That's good news.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the minutes of our meeting on February 28th, 2019. Does anyone have any questions? or comments? If not, we'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Thank you. Next is a report from the Wareham High School Student Advisory Committee. Hi. Thanks for coming.
We got a new water bubbler in our cafeteria, and it is the kind of bubbler where you can put your water bottle in it and it will fill it up. Like, it has a sensor on it.
I actually saw it. It's really cool. Yeah.
And it can save a lot of water bottles. So you can, like, bring your own water bottle from home, like a reusable one, instead of, like, taking all the plastic ones and having to recycle them.
Mhm.
And
Awesome.
also has like a number thing on it that like it tells you how many water bottles you saved like every time that you fill it up.
How many bottles have you saved so far?
I have not used it, so I don't know. So you guys were talking about late buses. I think they ran today. I work at the Boys and Girls Club, and one of my kids got off the bus, and I saw it, and I was super excited. We wanted to get them going mostly around like 2 weeks before the term ends, because like that's when kids are kind of going crazy because grades are closing and their grades may not be where they want them to be. And also last time we were here, we talked about a survey that we had, and we got the results from it. So one of the questions was if you would utilize the late bus. We got around like 100 responses from the whole school, and 75% of them said that they would. Another question was, would you utilize the outdoor eating area if that was available? And 91% said they would.
91?
91, yeah.
What was the temperature outside when you asked?
We mentioned that it will be open like when it gets warmer. And it was also, do you think you receive enough information regarding events that occur at the school? And there's about 50%. So we did come up with an idea to maybe get monitors inside the cafeteria that would kind of be like message boards to let students know if there's games going around, or if the drama club is holding a play, or if there's meetings being held by clubs.
We are also thinking about having an outdoor eating area at our cafeteria, and we did a survey. We asked questions like if people would use that too, and a lot of people said that they would use it. And we're working on getting tables for out there and getting a fence to close it in.
So Dr. Shaverhood came to one of our meetings a few weeks ago, and she told us that she would give us $3,000. So we are currently trying to figure out what we'll use that money towards, because we don't want to just throw it at anything. So we're kind of going to hold a survey, but not directly tell them that we have the money, but we're going to say, hey, what would you do if you had this amount of money? And just see what kids are going to say. There probably won't be a lot of serious answers, but we're hoping to get some feedback just to help us come up with like a good idea. We did have one idea about placing one of the water bubblers inside of the gym because of obviously the PE classes, but also athletics use the gym and everything. So yeah. And then a few things that's going on around the school. Colby said he's going to nationals. I'm also going to nationals. I did not place, but I will be going on a leadership academy. And DECA is also holding a home and living show this Saturday and Sunday 10 to 4, and then Sunday 12 to 4. So there will be a lot of vendors there where you can go to their booths and they'll talk to you about whatever they're trying to sell or something that they're trying to give back to the community. And that's it.
Thank you. Does anyone? I was going to ask her when they were done. If you could introduce yourself.
My name is Maya, and I'm a freshman.
Okay, thank you, Maya. And Jasmine.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? So I'm glad that Do you have, oh, sorry, Emily, go ahead.
So about the water bubbler, I've noticed it has like a couple hundred uses or whatever, but I'm pretty sure I'm like 100 of those. So how do we, like, I want to expand that because I use that like 5 times a day.
Well, there is like just a piece of paper above it that says new water bubbler, but I think if we make a new poster or something that will drive people towards it, because I know we do have the vending machine that has water bottles in it, so it's kind of like their own competition against each other.
So I'm glad that you're here tonight and that you mentioned the late buses, because your survey and your presentation to us had a lot to do with being able to bring back the late buses. So I'm glad that you're here tonight to be able to hear that. So thank you. And you talk about the outdoor eating area, the outdoor classroom. Have you had an opportunity to use that yet or not yet because of weather? Is it?
Like in the beginning of the year, I saw a few classes out there. I know Miss Dion, our art teacher, she used it a few times because we were working on still life projects. So we kind of had kids standing on the table and then we were like drawing each other. So there was like in the beginning of the year a few times I had to use, but then the weather kind of got really cold. So hopefully it'll be in use again when it's starting to get warm.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff.
So I'm told one of the goals of the school is to increase the extent to which students feel like they have a voice. Have they succeeded in creating that sense?
Well, this club, I guess you would call it, is one way to have a voice. I think we need to do more broadcasting about other clubs because there are a lot of clubs that you can have that opportunity. Student council is one because you can kind of control a lot of events that occur at the school, and DECA also can help with that because we do offer a lot of officer positions, so that can also help you get your voice out to, I guess, the DECA club. But I think a lot of clubs offer that versus in classrooms, but the IB classes, I'm in IB English, and we do a lot of discussion in that class, so also just like adding ideas onto that can help getting your voice out as well.
And how do you feel about having 8th graders in the high school?
We got used to it.
Honesty.
We, at first, a lot of the upperclassmen, we were not excited about it, but I think they kind of blend in now because, honestly, at this point, I can't tell if it's a freshman or an 8th grader. So it's because they're all new. But we got used to them. There was, at the beginning of the year when we had pep rally, there was a lot of not nice upperclassmen weren't excited about it because we kind of thought they were ruining a lot of things, but everything did go smoothly, and we have gotten used to them, and at this point, we don't really have a choice, so.
And maybe they've gotten used to you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Oh, and let me make a suggestion. If you have home show tickets with you, pass them out in the room.
I don't. Actually, they're in my car. I might go.
Someone got it.
Nick's got your back.
They're free, right, Nick? They're free.
I'm just going to assume that you all already have.
How many do you have?
Ask him again.
Okay, next up is a request for the April vacation 2020 Global Ambassadors Trip. Good evening.
Good evening.
If you could all introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
I'm Brooke Chandler. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Indiana Troop. I'm an 8th grader.
Maybe a freshman, they don't.
or a freshman. And it's me. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Franco, for those that I haven't met yet. I'm a new business teacher at the school, co-DEC advisor, and I'm here to talk to you today about 2019-2020 Global Education Trip. What's exciting about this trip is it was completely the idea of the students. I think it's the first time that the students actually got to vote and pick where they want to go, so that's pretty exciting.
Voice.
Yes, student voice, correct.
It's interesting because I teach business management. We spend a lot of time talking about the importance of globalization. And I think, is it Mr. Sweat said, you know, our students are in a bubble, but they're not always going to be in a bubble, so we have to break through that. And one way that we do that is giving them experiences outside of not just the school, but the country. So I'm super excited to share with you where we're going this year, and I'm going to actually turn it over to the students and let them get the applause for the cool place we're going to.
Yeah,
Yes.
oh,
You have a presentation.
Here,
for
I'll
you.
move over.
Okay.
You have to turn the mic if you're going to talk.
Yeah, I will.
Oh, there you go. What's the password?
It's right there. It's right on the.
It's on the.
It's on the.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
Do you remember the last time adults did that, how much trouble we had?
Yes. Should have them do it.
And do the caps.
Oops.
The caps lock is on.
The caps lock is on.
Caps lock.
Indy caps lock.
We planned this to build the anticipation.
It should be right on the desktop, Indiana.
The PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Now that we figured that out. All right, so our trip for April 2020 is Paris and
Benelux. So
Benelux.
Benelux means Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg.
So, and as Mr. Franco said, this was actually the first ever trip that was decided on entirely by our student trip committee. So we all met during advisory one day and came up with a list of ideas and countries we could go to, and France was the #1 choice. So we sent it over to Lingo Tours, and they kind of came up with an itinerary, and this is what we're presenting to you today. So this is just a little bit about Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Paris, the history and all that sort of thing. There's lots of it there, which is another reason why it was definitely a prime choice for a trip. So as we mentioned, this trip includes Brussels, Amsterdam, Luxembourg, Paris, Netherlands, so a lot of countries are included in the trip. So this is the broad itinerary, just the day by day. So we leave on the first day, and then second day and third day is Amsterdam, fourth day and fifth day is Belgium, and then sixth day is Brussels and Luxembourg. Day 7 is Paris, 8 is Paris, 9 is Paris, and then on day 10 we would return home. And I just wanted to mention quickly that we were talking earlier about what makes our school so special, and one of the things I think definitely is these trips. I mean, being in the global ed team, we all know, and I'm sure school committee's heard it several times, that Wareham is world renowned for our global ed program. Schools from all over the country look at Wareham and to see what we're doing with our global ed department. So we're definitely one of the leaders in this, which is really something that makes us stand out.
Yeah. So before we turn it over to questions, we have a few things to add. And by the way, Indiana was not lying about that. I remember Mrs. Manning at some point, this was a little bit ago, so I don't remember the specifics of it, but I believe Wareham was recognized at some event at Harvard for basically our global education in the school and as a community. So last year, I took part in the school's trip to Greece and Italy. And this was, I believe, that trip was the first tour that we took through Lingo Tours. And so I was just going to talk a little bit about that because it's the same company. And honestly, it's probably, if not the best, one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I mean, you get to see so many different things, and it's I'm trying to think of how to word this. But, you just, so for Greece and Italy, I went to Athens, and then I went to the Oracle of Delphi, then I went to Sorrento, and I saw Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii, then I went to Rome, and I saw the Colosseum, I saw Pantheon. And so the tour itself, one of the highlights, I would say, would be all of the tour guides. So like when we were in Vatican City, or when we were in Pompeii and the Oracle of Delphi, all these places, we had top-notch tour guides. They were, not only did they know everything there is to know, but they were really interesting and engaging, and it just made everything so much cooler. And especially because this trip has a lot to do with history. It's sort of in the same vein as the Greece and Italy trip, because obviously there's a lot of history there. And the hotels that we stayed at were amazing. It would only be up to like 2 to 3 people per room. And the breakfast was on the hotel, and the dinners were provided, not through the hotel, but they're included in the cost as well. And if you, once we're done with everything we want to say, if you have any questions about Lingo Tours itself, or about the tour that I went on, definitely feel free to ask. I know Indiana and Brooke went on a tour as well to China. However, that was not through Lingo Tours.
Yeah, we went through Boston Ivy and Boston Wise. They both yeah. So we were exchange students in China last year, which was an amazing experience. Like it wasn't through Lingo, and it was more of like a host experience and less of like tour like history. But we still had the same general concept of like traveling the world through Wareham, which was very great. So this trip is $3,397. So that is a little costly, obviously, but it's all inclusive. It's round trip flights from Boston to Europe with European and airport transfers, full-time specialist tour managers, 3 to 4 star hotels, breakfast and 3-course dinners, and then all of the sightseeing, which includes the gardens, the cruises. We're going to go to Anne Frank's house, which is really awesome. The American Cemetery in Luxembourg from World War I, and stuff like that. We're going to go to the museum where Mona Lisa is.
The Louvre.
Yeah. So all that stuff is really great. But the student can also offset the cost of this in many different ways. Like, I'm going on the trip this year, April. So I worked at the care program at the middle school, which I was able to make about $800 towards my trip, where some students in the past have even made their whole cost. So you have to like really put in some effort to do that stuff, but it's definitely possible. You can also do fundraisers and other opportunities that like car washes and such, that you can make money for your trip. So, and then the enrollment deadline would be next fall, and yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to emphasize something that Brooke just said right there, is that last trip to Greece and Italy, one of the people who went on it with me did not have to pay a single penny out of pocket. She worked the care program in the summer, and then we also offered that calendar raffle fundraiser that you may have heard of. And so through those 2 things, she was able to completely pay off the trip. And I believe that for the Norway, Sweden, and Finland trip, there was a girl who completely paid that off as well.
If a student really wants to go on this trip, they absolutely can.
Yeah,
It's
true.
Yeah, I think that's a key. Coming from humble beginnings myself, I'm very aware of that. So if any student that wants to explore the world and we have an opportunity to provide that to them, we will do everything in our power to make sure that student finds a way to make it happen. The student has to take initiative, and the student has to kind of work for it, but we will find those opportunities to make sure that a student gets to experience what I fortunately was able to experience last time I was in Amsterdam. So.
I believe there's also scholarships.
Yes, Global Ed over the past 5 years has given over close to $10,000 in scholarships, and we continue to look at that. So once enrollment is open, students will be able to start applying for those scholarships as well.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? So you answered again. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is you answered my questions. They were about the tour company you know, if it was the same tour company, what you knew about, so that's good. And the price, I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's a wonderful trip, so.
It's
yeah.
definitely doable to make it and provide.
What's exciting, it's actually lower this year than this year's trip, which is
Oh,
great.
really? Really?
And I'll say, just from my experience with the Greece and Italy trip, you know, it was only 8 days, and we covered a lot of things. And that's easily the best way to make these trips in the cheapest way possible. So, you know, I mean, obviously, it would have been great if we could have spent 5 days in Athens instead of 3, but in jamming it all into that time period, we saved, 2 hotel nights, whatever the travel, whatever prices have to do with travel, that type of thing. So I mean, it's the best way to travel as cheap as you can.
Oh,
essentially.
I mean, I looked at the itinerary, yeah. If I didn't have an unreasonable fear of flying, maybe I would go too. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I won't ask you about that slide that said the reason you wanted to go was to devour Belgian French fries. Or I should say Belgian fries, not French fries. But I am curious about, after all that thinking, that you came up with France. It's a country, frankly, in relative turmoil. They used to have a very popular president who is now very unpopular. They've still got constant protesting by the yellow vests, and I've been there a couple of times. But why do you think it came out? I'm putting the Benelux as a add-on, but France apparently was the real drawing card to the trip.
Yeah.
Why?
So I think when we're going to France, we are mainly spending our time in Paris, and I think Paris is one of the top bucket list locations on a lot of people's, and honestly, there was someone who brought up the protest stuff, and we looked into it, and those they were bad for a little bit, certainly, but they have
I wasn't
gone-
suggesting you were going to be harmed by them.
No, yeah, well, that's like we looked into that, and we made sure it's not posing a threat to us.
And in regards to the actual decision of it, back to the student trip committee that we've had this year. So we kind of met during advisory one day, and we said, where are places that you want to travel to? So, I mean, this was a group of about 20 kids that kind of just shouted out countries. And at the end, we had this list of a bunch of countries, and we said, now we're going to go around and see which countries that you pick. I think we had each person pick their top 3. And we put a tally mark next to it, and the top 3 were Dubai, Japan, and France. And after sending the 3 to Lingo Tours, and they came up with sample itineraries and priced everything out, France was the most affordable for a student,
Definitely.
and B, I mean, it was also our number 1 choice out of the 3, so it did work out.
We also talked about how France has a lot of history with America too, because they not only helped us in the American Revolution, but that was on our homestead, but in World War I, how World War I and World War II were very big in France, so that's always good. And French is also one of the 2 languages that we teach in Wareham High School. It's French and Spanish. So the original idea was we were going to try to see if we can do, since France and Spain are relatively close to each other, we were going to see if we could try to combine them and do it for like a language. But when we sent it to Lingo Tours, it was like too, I don't know, like the main like capitals and sites were like too far away, so it would be too expensive and such. But
Spain is also on the list for the future too. So.
So the language played a big part in it, along with the history.
The process sounds very reasonable and very thoughtful, so I applaud it.
It was the first time we had done it that way too, and it worked out pretty well.
No, it sounds perfectly reasonable.
They're just young and they want to see France.
Want to see the Eiffel Tower?
Yes.
Just don't
Which we will.
Okay, so are we looking for a vote to approve? Okay, Mike?
Sorry, what grades is this open to?
All.
So that was so it's open to everybody in high school, and I believe it is also open to as low
Open to
as
seventh, like younger than
6th
two.
grade.
Hi, sir. Sir, my name's Matt Stanton. I'm the Global Education Advisor at the high
Okay.
school. This trip is open to every student in Wareham Public School System. Any parent associated with a student at the high school, any relative, every adult that goes on the trips will be queried to make sure that background checks are done. But we're looking for an affiliation with a student. Obviously, with the younger students, we want to make sure that if they're younger, they want to be, usually they come with a parent or guardian. But we will talk closely with those parents on a case-by-case basis. But it is open to all students in the school system.
I yield for a moment.
Thank you. So I really think you should insist on a parent at a certain age. Leaving it up to the parent as to whether they want, a 7-year-old to go by themselves.
No, sir.
No.
That's not what I meant, sir.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I don't know the hard age, if there is a
But there
hard
is one.
Yes, yes. We look at about 7th grade and up needs a parent.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's all I wanted.
Down.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd love it. When you take the parent.
I'll say on the Greece and Italy trip, there were 3 7th graders and an 8th grader, and they all had parents who came with them. So it's open to more than just that. And also there was Johan, the CEO of Lingo Tours. He comes with us on the tours, and he gave a presentation to all 8th, 9th, and 10th graders probably about a month ago at the high school, just to inform them about the possibility of the trip.
And it's important to mention that this was definitely one of the tours that had the most interest among students
Definitely.
There were
ever
a lot.
that we've brought
lot of
up.
interest.
When we presented it to the 8th, 9th, and 10th graders, I went to class and it was all everyone was talking about. We couldn't even get the work done for the day because we were there talking about, oh, I'm gonna go to France and you're gonna come with me, and you're like, it was
I had a line
amazing.
outside my classroom door immediately after the presentation.
Really? That's awesome.
So,
What's the max amount that you can accommodate?
That's a great question.
For this particular trip, it's 30.
30? Do you anticipate more than that applying?
It's hard to tell. It's my first year that I'm going to be doing it. Based on the early response, it could get up there. So
Wondering if I should register right now. Is what I'm
highly recommend early registration.
Go ahead, Mike.
And it's been a while since I've done this, but I seem to recall usually the tour company is usually here to present as well. Is that
No,
no?
I've
Okay.
never had that. Well,
All right,
it's only
yeah.
my second time, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I would have had questions for them if they were here, but okay.
I am fairly certain that once this is approved, that they will be back for an official.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm getting confused about. Yeah, okay.
Because he has come to Wareham many times.
Okay, that's probably what I'm thinking of. All right.
If that's what you'd like, I'm sure we can arrange that.
Yeah.
School committee.
So back to the numbers on the who's going and such. What is the student to chaperone ratio?
There'll be 2 chaperones, myself and Beth.
Ratio. It's the ratio he wants to.
Oh, the ratio. We follow the same rule as 10-1, I believe, is what we always do.
That sound high to you?
That's what Washington is.
That's
Yeah.
usually, that's the usual.
Pretty standard.
Okay. And the chaperones, they don't pay, right?
No, there's 2 of us.
Okay.
And we will not.
Okay.
But a parent would.
Yes, the parents would. Beth and I will be spending countless hours. And if there's situations where parents come with students and the parents want to go have a dinner, we'll be available to stay with those kids and do things with the kids as well
Okay.
for those parents.
And just so anyone watching this or listening to it at home, this is totally, as far as we're concerned, budget neutral, right? This does not impact our budget. This is all being paid by whoever's going.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Move approval.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? 500. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, be safe.
Thank you. We're going to France.
You gonna go?
I mean, I should probably tell my husband first, and I'm not inviting him, so. But my sons always want to go to Amsterdam.
Though, that's crazy.
It's a great trip. I've been
Yeah?
on that trip.
I promised him Amsterdam for high school graduation.
Get a job.
Amsterdam, Paris, all that. So that's good.
So next on the agenda is a request from the senior class of next year for a senior prom and a senior class trip.
There you go.
Yes,
Like a
yes,
lunatic.
you see it all. Yep. How about my vacation?
Hi, thanks for coming. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves first, please?
Joshua Flaherty, and I'm the treasurer.
Okay.
I'm Jasmine Black, and I'm the president.
I'm Brian Gallagher, and I'm the secretary.
I'm Jocelyn Hendricks, and I'm the vice president.
Our social chair is not here tonight. She's at work, but she's Rayana Bonner.
Okay.
So we're here for a request of approval for our prom and our class trip. So we did go and visit a few venues, and we chose the Cape Club, which is in Falmouth. The class of 2017 did hold their prom there a few years ago. The potential date that we're looking at is Saturday, May 16th, 2020. Time is 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Roughly around 8 to 10 chaperones. We already have 6 who are committed. It's about a half an hour drive from here. Food, we are thinking of doing a buffet style, Italian, I think we're thinking about. The capacity is 210, and then there's a separate room that has like a soda bar area. And then our class size, we have roughly around 100 kids, but we do get a lot of outside guests that like to come to prom. And then promenade will be held at the high school from 4 to 5. A theme, we're undecided at this time right now, but we are thinking about the Great Gatsby type theme because it will be 2020 and trying to bring back maybe the Roaring Twenties. And ticket price, we're looking between 65 to 70, which has been the same price for the past few years. And yeah. Any questions?
Sounds good.
You have any questions? Mike?
All right, so no PowerPoint? I mean, Indiana had a PowerPoint. The 8th grader had a PowerPoint. So anyway, I had a question going over the dates. The April vacation, correct me if I'm wrong, does the kids who dual enroll with Bridgewater, are they out that week too, or?
No.
Oh, wait, we're just talking about the prom right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the prom first,
okay,
and then we'll
the
talk
prom.
about the
All
trip.
right.
So do you have any question about the prom?
No.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So in talking to people who have had proms, anybody made mistakes that you learned from in trying to decide what, where, and all that sort of stuff?
Sizing was definitely like the space of the venue, because last year I saw pictures from the class of 2018s, and the area did look very small. So we do have 2 separate rooms, so we will be a lot more spread out, because there is like a separate area for like dancing, and then separate area for eating, and then there's a whole separate room that has like lounging area, and you can also get your drinks in that room.
And the second question is, you mentioned you have, I think you referred to them as outside guests come. Now, obviously, someone can bring someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's normal. But do people come who are not part of the class?
Yes.
Without a class member as a date?
Oh, they have to be signed in from a student that is a senior at the time.
I don't know what that means. So a senior can bring a date?
Yes.
Yes? And they can also invite others to come?
Yes, so say, well, for example, they can only bring in one person. So we have like official forms that you have to sign in, and they have to be approved by Mr. Palladino for them to come to the prom.
And usually by their school as well, they have to like do like a grade check and stuff for them to be able to be eligible to.
So if your class is 100, approximately, okay? and everybody brings one person. The maximum, it seems to me, you could have there is 200. Am I accurate?
The capacity of the venue is 210.
I
So
understand. But so you have no risk of being over capacity because each class member can only invite one other person, correct?
yes.
Okay. I was confused, but thank you. Okay.
Mike?
I actually did have a question. So I saw the estimated cost for the prom, and I found this interesting. It's unknown at this time, but prom will pay for itself. What happens if it doesn't?
Michelle Amo, I'm one of the class advisors. The cost of their ticket pays for their meal and would be separated into paying for DJ and decorations and things like that. So that's what the 65 covers.
Okay, it just the estimated cost for the prom is unknown, but it will pay for itself. So
Yeah, so because we're still unclear on menu and things like that, so that could so we have a
Gotcha.
quote from them, so
All
based
right.
off of the quote and what's been done in the past,
All right.
that amount should stay.
All right, thank you.
So when I saw this, I thought, it's not Memorial Day weekend, and it's not a Friday night. So we have learned, yes, so that's great. No, really, it's a thing. Does anyone else have any questions? Looking for a motion to approve? their
Still looking for
request?
chaperones? Might- Yeah.
No, don't worry, Josh, we won't let him go. Could I have a motion to approve the prom?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained? 500.
Have
Okay,
fun.
you're having a prom, now you want a class trip.
So we would like to go to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. The potential date would be April vacation of 2020, the Monday through Thursday. It would be 4 days and 3 nights on Disney property. The estimated cost would be under $1,200, no matter what. We want to keep it under $1,200. Estimated number of students is between 30 to 50, but it could be a little bit over that. We want to have 5 to 6 chaperones. We already have 5 committed.
My husband just yelled at me for the other one. So.
The hotel we would be staying at is Disney's All-Star Sports Resort. There are 4 parks, and we'll be there for 3 days. So we will pick 2 parks to go to in one day, and the other 2 will be at 2 separate parks. Meals are included, and to offset the cost of our trip and prom and class dues, we'll be doing lots of fundraising. We already have done a couple of fundraisers like raffle calendars. We're going to be doing car washes, canning. We just did our Eversource light bulb fundraiser. We will be doing wreath sales, also catalog fundraisers, and Yankee candles. We're also holding the spring fling next weekend. Any questions?
Does anyone have any Go ahead, Mike.
So just back to my first question. So I guess, the kids that are dual enrolled in Bridgewater, they're going to miss some days of school there.
Yes.
All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it up to the parents then, if that's a good decision or not.
Any other questions? Jeff?
So don't take any offense, because you guys are great, but for Disney World, I mean, you get about a 0 for creativity. I mean, did you consider any other places?
We did. We thought about doing a couple, different resorts. We know we wanted to go somewhere where it was going to be warm in April. I mean, some people have been to Disney World, but have you been to Disney World with all your friends? So I guess it is different.
I mean, you're entitled to go wherever you want to go, but,
Yeah.
I guess I'm too old.
All 3 of my kids have gone on these trips, and they've all come back and had a great time, and yeah, it was good.
It seems to always be Disney World or Universal, right?
Well, they make it very easy. I don't know if they still do like a senior night where they close the park, and do they still do that? Yeah, so they make it easy for these kids to go on the trips, yeah.
And we did look at other options because we were thinking about going near Myrtle Beach, but we also wanted to go somewhere where we would have a lot of things to do versus just staying at our hotel. If we go to
Right,
parks,
there's
we'll have things to do.
transportation, where
Yeah.
you want to go.
And we'll
there's
stay on the
events.
resort and-
Yeah, it's just easy, yeah. and it's safe.
No one dies in Disney.
No.
They're not allowed to, exactly.
All right, are there any other questions? No? Is there a motion to approve their senior trip?
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. Well, you have a prom and a trip. Thank you.
Couldn't resist. You'll pay for it later, you know.
Okay, next is the update on the elementary building project. It is, okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for being patient.
Of course. Give Andrea a second here. Perfect.
So we know who you are, but if you could introduce yourselves for everyone else.
Absolutely. So, good evening. My name is Chad Crittenden. I'm with PMA Consultants, the owner's project manager for the town of Wareham.
And my name is Dennis Staley, and I'm with Mount Vernon Group Architects, and we're the architects of the project.
Thanks.
So we have a brief presentation to update you on progress since the MSBA invited Wareham into the next step. That happened on December 12th, so the team has been hard at work. We'll have Dennis go through some of the design updates, and then we'll talk a little bit about schedule and budget. Dennis, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. This is an overall site plan of the site as we've been developing and working on through the development of the project. It's come quite a bit further than the last time you saw it, when it was just sort of a diagram. What we're seeing here is of course, the roof of the building, but of important note is the development of the land around it. There's ample parking provided in the parking lots to the right, but there's also a student drop-off area that's made possible by having paved play areas. You can see those paved play areas. They stand out by the kickball courts, which are outlined on them in blue and gold. And parents will be able to queue up in there, drop their students off in the morning, to pick up in the afternoon, and the rest of the day have a paved play area that can be maintained and clear during the entire winter, and be of a real advantage to all the students. I should also like to point out that we've worked closely with the committee, and fire department, and police department, and so forth, talking about the security of the site, as well as the access to the site by the fire department. And we've made it possible for the fire department to have approaches to the school from all sides and be able to fight fires from all sides, including a strip of green grass that you see there beside the aforementioned paved play areas, which is reinforced lawn areas, so if a fire truck does have to go up there, they can drive on that safely, mount the truck on its mounts and fight a fire in case of such an emergency. Here are the floor plans, and as you can see, the school is still laid out in the same general form as you've seen before. It's a central core with two academic wings. The academic wings on the lower part, wing on the lower part of the drawing here is what we'll call the early childhood education portion of the building. That wing will include pre-K, kindergarten on the lower level, and on what we call the first level, which is this level, you'll have first grade, and on the second level, second grade. Third and fourth grades will be on the wing to the right. And all of them will share the facilities. You see in the middle, there's a central entry, which brings you into the lobby with a circular staircase. To the left of that is the cafetorium, and to the right of that is the gymnasium. There'll be administrative offices in that area, as well as the nurse's office and OTPT. This is sort of zooming in on that for us to see a little bit closer. You'll see the cafeteria on the left, and it has a dark line that goes through it. This is a movable partition which will enable the users to separate it into discrete spaces, so small learning areas can, large learning areas can be developed during certain times of the day. Also, on the right, the gymnasium is divisible for two teaching stations. That type of partition is one that rolls down from above. It's a partition that's made up of netting at the top and vinyl, weighted vinyl at the bottom, which provides teaching stations that have, as you can see, those side court baskets. So short court basketball can take place in there. Men's and women's, boys and girls rooms are provided in the area, as well as numerous offices and conference rooms. We also have guidance offices, which are close, some of which are closely located near the cafeteria for the lunchtime groups that are an important part of what happens. To the left is the music suite, and the music suite contains two large music rooms. They back right up to the stage area of the cafetorium, and they also have, there's an ensemble room for smaller groups of musicians, singers, and so forth. That also provides an entry lobby that you can see there in the center of it, which is where the buses will drop students off and they'll enter the school in that area. As we go to, we're showing you a single example of what happens in the academic wings from first grade through fourth grade. And basically, they're all identical. They're designed to be like neighborhoods, which will contain classrooms, special education rooms, small group rooms, and as well as breakout spaces that can be used for team projects and so forth. We've also designed it in such a way that there are office spaces available there, so there's always an administrative presence at every classroom grade level. So when we go back to the second, this is the second, no, that's fine. We'll go back to the large plan, we see the second floor. At the top of the spiral staircase, we have the hub of the school. It's the innovation hub, and it's a real new way of looking at what a media center in the 21st century should be. The insightful work of the administrators and the committee have brought us to a point where we think we've developed a very exciting and wonderful place for kids to learn. The Innovation Hub will feature, of course, all the learning areas that a media center would include, but also we've combined it in a way that the art rooms are an essential part of it, and also STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, math, arts, and mathematics. That room is also in this area, and it has access to a rooftop area as well. One can really see opportunities for robotics that can expand into, aerial robotics in such a space. So that links both, and actually there's a close-up of everything here. And that is really being a hub, not just of learning, but a hub that really brings all the communities together. So second and fourth grade will be right on the same floor, but first and third grade just a stairway away, as well as the kindergarten and the pre-K. So everybody's in very much close proximity, because we're trying to really develop what would otherwise be a very large building to become more of a village. And as we look further into the building, you see what we're saying. The next slide is the kindergarten pre-K area. This area is, because of the way the site is oriented, this is the lower story of a 3-story building. It's completely above ground, and it is it has all the facilities required for this first part of the early childhood education, the kindergarten and preschool. Has its own administrative spaces, its own entry, its own exit to age-appropriate play areas on the outside, and again, trying to create a real community feel by grouping classrooms together in such a way that nothing ever seems to be very far away. Here's a picture of the exterior of the building, and you can see that although it's large, we've broken up the massing and used different materials in the massing to, again, make it seem much more like a village and a collection of smaller buildings rather than one really large building. And we've been very fortunate to have an active committee looking at the exterior of the building and the site, two different subcommittees that we've been meeting with along the way. We've had a couple very good meetings last week, and we're given some direction which we've already started to engage with. The next slide will show you a close-up of the front entry. And one of the things that we're looking at, and probably by next Monday we'll have some examples of, is we're at the point now where we can start looking at the colors of the bricks that we're using. We talked about the character of being in the forest, and minor forest, and the types of colors that a person might find there in the rich auburns and yellows and reds. And as well as we talked about the fact that it's a seaside community and there's wonderful variety of colors of sand that we can find nice bricks in. So we're looking at putting together presentations where we can look at the school with a variety of different color combinations. And that's what we're presently doing right now. As we move around the school, you can see how the colors change. And it allows the different parts of the building each to sort of stand out on its own and make it feel, smaller than it actually is. As we come around to the back of the building, we can see on the central left-hand side is where the gymnasium is with associated offices and storage spaces that's poking out. And then more central, you'll see the cafeteria with 3 gables on it, which will have access to the outside. We're looking at the outside area of that space to also perhaps include some raised gardens that can be used for community use if possible. As we move around the building, this is that entry at the music area that I talked about, where the kids would be dropped off by the buses. An example of how we're addressing, as we move along, some of the suggestions, working with the subcommittees. You can see here we've been able to manipulate the spaces enough that we're able to take the smaller the ensemble area and push it in a bit to make that smaller, lower building separate itself better from the higher building. We've also found a way to understand the interior spaces better. To the left of the entry there, you'll see we have some narrow, high windows, because those are storage areas, but we also have an office area, and we wanted to organize it in such a way that the windows were in character with the rest of the building. This is a good shot because it shows you all the different materials and shows you the wonderful sort of palette we're going to have to work with as we start studying and understanding the color combinations for the building. This, as I mentioned when we talked about the kindergarten and preschool, pre-K, this is their entry onto the age-appropriate play area. So we're fortunate with the site that we have that we're able to set play areas in different parts of the site for different age groups. So this is that, and that lower portion, which has its own distinct color, is the kindergarten and pre-K. And as we approach the site or leave the site, you can see an overall picture of the school. The first thing a person will see coming in is the entry to the kindergarten and pre-K, and then up the walkway, you can see the main entry of the building, which would be reached by a driveway, which would be coming up on your left. And the strip of grass in front of you is that strip that I talked about before, which is reinforced for use of fire trucks if ever needed.
All right, thank you, Dennis. To speak very quickly about schedule, so we are actually right on the brink of issuing the first bid package. It's scheduled to hit the street next Wednesday, and that is for abatement and demolition of the existing building. So we are going to have a total of 3 bid packages. We will have one more early package, that is enabling site package number 2 you see up there on the screen. That happens a little bit later this summer, out to bid towards the end of July. The second site package is clearing and grubbing of trees, and then it's also site cuts and brings the site down to rough grade to prep for the final bid package while design is being developed through the different milestones, DD 6090, and ultimately ready to go out to bid at the end of this year. So that way we're progressing the work, we're getting ahead of the game, we're reducing some of the risk that would be out there otherwise if we were to hold off until February, March for the ground to thaw. Next slide, please. So overall project schedule, we have 4 major submissions still to go to the MSBA. The grant amount at this point is fixed. We do have an executed project scope and budget agreement. We know what the MSBA contribution will be. Project funding agreement right now is routing for signatures. Our next submission to the state is the design development package. We're coming up on completion of that, so each of these packages gets shipped off to 2 different independent estimators. We meet with the building committee, we go through all the scope that's in the project, we really go into detail as far what's going to stay in or come out to make sure the project stays on target. We do that at each of the following milestones. So in August, we do that with the 60% design package. In November, we do it with the 90% package. And then the 100% package is really for record at that point. Those first 3 dates, MSBA does a full analysis and they provide us in-depth review comments on each of the packages, ways that maybe the building can be more efficient or economical or improve the educational program based on all the projects they have around the state. So they are involved every step of the way. And then ultimately, the last line there is February 2020, and that's our 100% bids due package date. The idea there is execute contracts, get insurance in place. They mobilize to the site just in time for the spring ground thaw and can get to work on foundations immediately because the site's already been prepped for them. Next slide, please. So the last slide here, project cash flow. Very, very hard to see on the screen, but if you look at the bottom left corner, you see 3 red bars. Those are the actuals. The blue bars are the total budget, and the green bars are forecast MSBA grant payments. There's 3 cumulative lines that mean the same thing. So the red cumulative line that you can just barely see there is spot on to where the forecast would be. This is a forecast that's developed before we even go back to the MSBA, so this actually dates back to September of last year. But we are exactly on target with where we need to be. Total paid to date through this month, just under $1.5 million. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Mary?
So with the play area, is that include the equipment, or are we using, what about the equipment like at Deacon's, and what happens with that? So I guess it's a question more for the superintendent.
Yes, we are planning to put new equipment in. The equipment at Deacon's, depending on what the town does with Deacon's will determine what happens with the play area. Hopefully it will remain there because we know our town could use some, areas for students or children to play.
So just to clarify, the playground equipment, the new equipment is included in the cost, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's in the budget.
All right, thank you. And then the other question is, I might be digging in to future plans or more technical, but it has to do with security. Have we thought about that, about cameras and buzz-ins and all that? Okay.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, just this afternoon, we had our technology engineers in to briefly introduce, their approach to how they're going to do the project. And they are going to be working with our security consultants on the security and the cameras and all that. We have another meeting coming up, I believe it's April 2nd, at which the security people will be back, and we're going to have a representative from the engineers again. So, because, you know, they talk very specifically and about some really esoteric things sometimes. I want them to be there face to face so everybody will be on the same page along with the administration.
Great, thank you.
There's a working group that specifically for that purpose, and it includes members of the police department, the fire department, you know, from the community.
Okay.
Anyone else, Mike?
I was happy to see we're on track. We're on budget or right there. That's great. Is that presentation on the website?
It might not be on our website, but they put all of their presentations on.
Right after the presentation happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. And now, probably more of a question for Mr. Sweat. You're still you're the chair of that committee? Yeah. Did you happen to watch the finance committee meeting? This past one?
No.
All right. They are still calling it like the Deacon's School at Minot Forest, and it has not been named, right?
Okay, so the reason they're calling it that is because the Board of Selectmen chose to use that title on the warrant.
Oh.
Okay? It literally has no legitimacy beyond the fact that the Board of Selectmen decided to use it.
Okay.
Okay? It is the responsibility of the school committee to name that building.
Okay.
And no decision has been made.
Right, yeah. All right. And I guess what is left to be decided at this point? Just colors and materials?
So there's a lot of design details that need to happen. We have the shell and the
yeah, I
space
keep
is
seeing the
pretty
same.
much locked.
It seems like the same shell, but I mean, you keep talking about colors and materials.
So everything that happens in the wall is still yet to be designed, right? All the electrical, all the plumbing, mechanical, fire protection. There's the whole effort of now actually making the building function. So we know how the layout will be right now. Next step, so the design development package that goes in really defines those systems. And then once we get into 60%, we start implementing those systems into the building. And
But the shell doesn't change. I mean, it was all the rooms are the same. That
it
doesn't
has a little
change.
bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, things have been refined.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's constantly being refined, which is great, and that's why it's so important to have these working groups and have the overall committee. So there's a lot of eyes on it, and especially the users who are going to do it so we can make sure that everything works and revisit it whenever possible.
Jeff?
Just as an example, trying to remember which committee meeting it was, doesn't matter. We were just talking about the ratio of windows to wall, because that's part of the efficiency that the MSBA is looking for. I noticed on this presentation, there was a small wall that had one window the last time we talked, and there was now four, I think, or 3 or 4 windows, okay? And so there are all sorts of things still being adjusted, keeping in mind 2 things. One is we want to make sure we get the 2% extra associated with energy efficiency and things like that. But also we want to make sure that the budget is not hurt by whatever changes we're making. We've added some offices to give administrative support in every wing. That was an important thing that the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and the principals decided had to be there. So there are, in fact, it may not be obvious, but there are things that are changing.
I hope there's going to be a ton of windows. That's what really sold me a lot on it, was all that bright windows.
Except keep in mind, every time we add a window, we change the ratio, and if you get too many windows, then the state gets upset about energy conservation.
Yeah, but Mike gets upset when he sees the presentation that, looks so awesome, and then you have less windows.
I think we're pretty close to the number of windows, so if you like it now, you're probably going to be very happy.
I agree.
Yeah, and like they said, there are lots of discussions and decisions. The last working group meeting that I went to, we were looking at different colors with one of the designers. I mean, Dennis is here tonight, but there are many people who work for Mount Vernon who are involved in the project, architects, designers,
Interior decorators.
Yes. Every time I see pictures, they're a little sharper, a little more detail. It's really exciting. One thing I noticed in the picture tonight, there are 2 soccer fields. Is that,
The two, that's
is
what
that
fits
not
up.
really
Huh?
true?
Nope, there are.
Are there two up there
Yes.
now?
Yep, the
Oh,
site
all this
plan
talk, I've only
graphic
heard
there.
about one. I've actually never been
Yeah.
up there, but I thought there was only one. Okay.
Yeah, no, those are
No,
two
that's great.
official
Okay.
size.
Okay, good.
The
All right.
graphic is cleaned up and enhanced a little bit, so I think they're a little more pronounced now.
Oh, maybe that's why I thought there was only one up there, yeah. And so while you're here, we can just say that the next school building committee meeting is Monday, the 18th? Right, and at 6 o'clock to accommodate more, so that more people would be able to come. And as always, it's open to everyone
Please
who
come.
wants to attend. It's a public meeting and, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is acceptance of gifts.
Yes. I would recommend the acceptance of the following gifts. $9 from Your Cause on behalf of an employee of AT&T. $125 from the Wareham Police Association to the Stage Backpack Program. $125 from El Mariachi of Wareham to the Stage Backpack Program. $25 from Julio and Juliet Roderick of West Wareham to the Stage Backpack Program. $125 from Bracken Engineering of Buzzards Bay to the Stage Backpack Program. I would ask the committee to please accept those gifts.
Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. Next on the agenda is a report of the business manager. Welcome.
So we're just about 3/4 way through the year. I provided the financial report that I've been updating each quarter or monthly. It's been a month now. So this FY19 report covers from July 1 through the end of February. And I did a comparison between this year and last year like I've done in the past. So if you look at the two, for FY19, we're about 54% through expended our budget. And last year, we were at 53.15%, so we're pretty on target overall. The balance right now that says it's $13,090,000 versus we were about $13,295,000 last year, so that again is pretty on target and similar to what we did last year. Out of that $13 million that's remaining, there's about $8 million encumbered in salaries that we did not do last year, but they are now encumbered. There's also a remaining $4.7 million. 2.5 of that is encumbered through purchase orders, things that are on order, tuitions, utilities, things like that. And that leaves about $2.3 million of available funding to cover the unexpected expenditures or things that we can't encumber, like we can't encumber what the substitute teacher pays are going to be for the rest of the year. We can't encumber a lot of the people that work by a time slip, or bills that come through that we're not planned for. So the other $2.3 million would cover that, and hopefully we end with close to a zero balance. I looked at a couple of the areas that stood out to me. Most of them are on target. I don't see any that really, because we're at 67%, so we're pretty close to 3/4 of the way through the year. The only one that I really wanted to talk about was the junior senior co-op. I'm not really sure what we call that. It could be, I hear pass, I hear alternative, I hear all kinds of names. And when we look back to last year, we budgeted $90 million last year and we only used $7 million. This year we budgeted $119 and we've only used $10 million to date. So we're looking at that closely, and I know we talked as a budget subcommittee about holding off on some of our budget transfers till later in the year when we can get a bigger picture of what it really looks like, and we'll be making recommendations on making transfers, that obviously being one of them. Just off the top of my head, we could probably transfer up to $100,000 out of that account, because I'm not quite sure exactly what is coming out of that, other than I know there's some utilities coming out of that, there's a copy machine coming out of that, very limited salaries coming out of that, so we definitely can take a look at that, and that will be on a list of requests for budget or recommendation for budget transfer. I don't know if there are any other areas that you want to talk about that stand out to you. I don't have any right now that are any areas of concern. I mean, overall, we're at 54%, which is better than where we need to be. Questions?
Mary?
So with the junior-senior co-op, what's paying the teacher's salary?
A portion of it's in there. There is some in there.
But that's, yeah, it's not very much. I mean,
Well, we have revolving accounts and we have grant funding. So most of it, majority of it's coming through with the revolving accounts.
okay. So there's potential for actually expansion.
Anyone else? Jeff?
So I know the percentage is relatively small. It's about 1.75% difference year to year, right? 53.15 to 54.9. So that's 1.75%. We've sent a higher percentage than last year. Agreed? Okay. So it's a small percentage, but we're talking about a large budget, and that's roughly $500,000. So you're telling me we shouldn't be concerned that we've spent $500,000 more now as compared to last year?
No, just in salaries. I mean, the difference in salaries from last year to this year could make that amount up.
Well, yeah, but this is the percent of the total budget, which includes the salaries. So it's already taken into account that the salaries are higher.
Right.
I'm talking percentage to percentage, not absolute dollars.
Okay.
Because it is $500,000. But you're not concerned.
No.
Okay, as long as you're not concerned,
No,
I won't be concerned.
I'm not concerned at all. I mean, it could be many variables. It could be it's a snapshot. So the snapshot of what we've paid this year through February 28th could be very different from what was paid last year through February 28th, based on, bills going on, even if it's tuitions. Something as simple as tuitions. If they didn't put all the tuitions in before February 28th.
I agree, timing can play a big role.
So to me, it's just a snapshot.
Okay. And do you accrue?
Do we accrue?
Accrue expenses? So at the end of a certain period, are there some things that are accrued that have not been paid yet?
We encumber.
You encumber,
We
yes.
encumber, yes.
You do encumber.
So there's $2.3 million encumbered for supplies, materials, or tuitions, and then there's $8 million encumbered to pay salaries between now and the end of the year.
And when you encumber, encumber and accrue, same thing. Well, it may be the same thing. When you encumber, is it based on a policy or is it discretion what you encumber?
It's on discretion. I don't think there's a policy. The things
So it's not pure accounting. It is a discretionary thing what you encumber.
No, I wouldn't say it's discretionary. It's anything that we can predict that we know, we try to put on a purchase order so it then encumbers the money.
So it sounds like you may actually be going beyond accrual.
So, like utilities, we know we have an estimated utilities every month. Copy machine leases, we know that fee every month. Salaries, we know what that is every month. Tuitions, we know what that is every month. So, things that we know are repetitive month to month, we put on a purchase order and we encumber it. So we've slotted that money so we know it's put aside to pay.
I'm good.
Okay.
The only other thing I wanted to talk about was transportation. Now, the budget of about approximately $1.8 million, that is pure expenses. Is that correct?
No, the salaries in there too.
No, well, salaries are an expense. I mean, is there any revenue in that? Is that a net number?
There is no revenue because this is just the school budget. Transportation does have a revolving account that collects that $100 fee.
Does McKinney-Vento just simply go into a revolving account, for example?
Grant revolving, yes.
It doesn't, it
does not go here.
It is not netted against that 1.8 million?
No.
Okay. How about if we provide services to another district for sped transportation, for example? Okay? We occasionally do that because it's more efficient for them and us. and we get paid by another district, where does that money go?
Into the revolving.
Once again, into the revolver. Okay. And when the school pays, I know this is intra-district, but when the school, like the high school, has a field trip, we charge them. The transportation department charges them, correct? Does that money that is, I know it's not real, it's paper, okay? How does that payment by the high school to the transportation department get handled?
It goes into the revolving account.
Also goes into the revolver. So that revolver is really building up.
There's not a whole lot in there.
How is that possible if we're using services all the time from the high school and they're paying us? Why doesn't that accumulate?
It does accumulate, but we have expenditures come out of there. So a portion of our transportation fees do come out of the
Okay,
revolving
so what do you
account.
take out of the revolver on a regular basis?
What do I take out of it?
Yes. Do you take out of that on a monthly basis?
No.
So if you don't take out on a monthly basis, why doesn't it continue to accumulate?
Well, we don't have a set amount that comes out monthly, so there's probably a portion of salaries that come out of there. So that's a weekly or a bi-weekly thing.
That's a regular basis.
I think, if I could interject, I think some of the costs that come out of the revolver would be paying drivers' salaries when they do field trips.
Okay.
Paying those gas when they do field trips, et cetera, so it helps offset what the cost is.
If I took and finally, we're getting, I don't have no idea how much. Students are actually now paying a fee. Where does that money go?
Into the revolving account.
Into the revolver. Okay. How is that going, by the way? Is it relatively smooth?
Smooth, yes. I don't think we've brought in as much as we've expected.
Well, that's relevant. So are we bringing in 90%, 80%?
I think we're significantly short. I would not even I would say probably about 40%.
Wow.
Perhaps.
Okay, and is that because fewer kids are using the buses? Or is that because fewer kids are just literally not paying because they don't have to pay because of their income status? Or is it because we've actually got some delinquent?
No, we don't have delinquent.
We don't have delinquents.
No.
So more people who qualified for free transportation than we anticipated. Is that the biggest reason?
Yes, and we've had this discussion when we look at user fees for athletics, for busing, preschool. It's a very, very small portion of our community or our families that are paying that. And that's one reason why we're working very diligently not to raise those costs, because it's coming from a small pool.
But we budgeted expecting a certain amount of money.
We did. I think we budgeted about $110,000, if I recall.
And we're only getting about 40% of that.
Yeah, and part of that, though, we also cut additional routes. So that's where we broke even. Well, we didn't break even, but that's where we are not in the red. Because we had said we were going to, I believe it was reduce one to two bus routes, and we ended up doing, I believe, 3 or 4. So that helped offset. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good information, thank you. If we took our budget and divided it by our total number of students, and I understand only a certain percentage of those students actually ride the bus, but just as a baseline, we'd come up with some number, I don't know, 1.8 million divided by 2,500 students, okay? You'd come up with a number, right, per student. Do you have any idea how that compares to other districts? You've worked in other districts, right? Any idea how our cost per student compares to other districts?
I mean, I can only speak from the districts that I know, that I've come from or I've
Great.
known. Very different community. We charged $567 per student to ride the bus.
Where was that?
Sharon.
500, wow, that's quite a burden.
Mhm.
But I was thinking, how much did it cost? That would have gone into a revolver, right? Like us, okay, it would go into, but if you compare budget to budget and divide it by the number of students in the district, any idea how much Sharon would have been on a per-student basis?
That was based on per student. That was almost half of the students were paid rides. And the other half we were mandated to transport. So we had a revolving account and we had the LEA. And the portion was $567 for the pay to ride to cover 50% of the transportation.
So you're saying the total cost per student was approximately $1,100, 550 times 2, approximately $1,100 per student, if we just, right? Is that what you're saying?
More like 275.
No, it was $567 is what the true cost was for someone to ride the bus.
Okay, so that's the number per student, and the other half didn't pay it, but it would have been the same for the other half if
Correct.
they were paying it.
Correct.
Okay.
And that was more because our ridership was almost 50-50.
Understood. So if we were going to be comparable to that, that's interesting, because our cost per student is much higher. We can talk about this at another time, but I'm trying to get a sense, because I was asked this question recently. And when we've gone out to bid, it's always been more to privatize, right? But it would be interesting to compare to other communities how much we're paying per student. And your number is quite a bit lower than it's costing us. And that's what I'm reacting to.
Well, the 567 is half.
Yeah, but you said that's still the cost
Per
per
student,
student.
right. So the school budget would fund about 800,000 is what was in our school budget, and then we probably had another 800,000 in pay to ride.
I understood. That's not the issue at all. It's the total cost of having the transportation system that I'm getting at. Thank you.
I mean, it is cheaper. I mean, I just had this conversation. It is cheaper to own your own buses and run your own. The downside to that is the health insurance. I mean, that's usually the breaking point, is if you have everything in-house, you have to cover all the health insurance. When you outsource, you don't have to pay the health insurance. That's
Yeah, but they built it into the cost for the service, so it doesn't really matter. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike.
So I like your little explanations in the sections here, and some stuff caught my attention though, and they're really probably more so a question for the superintendent. So under DECUS, for example, I wish Ms. Chandler was still here, but it says FY19 DECUS Elementary overspent several of their maintenance line items. This included the maintenance and repairs of the heating system, the generator, and the alarm system. Now, the heating system's pretty new there, isn't it?
It is. And the generator, you know, that's been I can't even call it because, but that's been a source of discussion because, as you know, in town meeting, they allowed us X number of dollars.
Yeah.
And at this point, we had talked with the company that services our generator, and they've wired it, so if something would go down in the 2 years or 2.5 years while we're still in the building, we could lease a generator at a much less cost.
Yeah.
That would just plug into it and still power the building. So that's why we've chosen to do some work there to make that work.
So there was a warrant article, and we got the generator, right, or money for the generator. Did we get the generator?
No.
No, but we prepped it, I guess.
Yes.
For the generator. Like, how much was that? Offhand, do you know how much that was?
Off the top of my head, it was probably about 18,000, I want to say, and
Really?
I can't tell you why, but that jumps up.
All right, but what's up with the heater? Like, why are we paying so much money to fix a new heater?
Yeah, I would have to look into that, because we shouldn't be.
Yeah. All right, and then moving down, I guess under mine last sentence, it was it mentions there were additional costs this year due to the move between Minot and Deaconess, such as phones. Why would phones be impacted?
Right, because what we did when Minot moved into the middle school, we wanted to make sure that they had phone system that would be split. And so we had to get Arcadia as the company that we used. They had to come in and redo program and rewire some areas. So if Mrs. Siemens wanted to make an announcement, it would just go to that one
All right, I
room.
was going to ask you why we want it separate, but so that's like
Yeah.
a PA system and such, yeah. All right. Okay. And then under the high school, I'm seeing under supplies and materials, we went negative, but I don't see a description on why there.
Overspent.
Just, I mean,
Budget's over, I mean.
but kind of like big time, right?
Well, we did reduce his budget, from what I understand is we reduced his budget for supplies and materials substantially last
Okay,
year.
all right, yeah. All right.
And that, that may be a discussion of that $100,000+ that we've got set aside
Yeah.
for junior, senior co-op. We might have to transfer some over back into the high school for
Okay,
supplies
all
and
right.
materials.
And then this is just interesting on the last page. It's not this year, it's last year, but what happened last year with the ELL? Why was that like so, 415% of the budget, of what was budgeted? The second to last line item there on the last.
We had to, because of the amount of students in ELL, we had to bring in another teacher, so
Yeah.
that was the salary that was charged against that.
Yeah, that was, wow, just
Yeah.
sticks right out. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so do you want to move on to the
Yes.
not student activities again?
Yes, so we haven't talked much about student activities. One, because I personally didn't know a lot about the student activities. It was held on the town side. We have just recently, the end of January, now moved all the accounts over to the school side. So now we really have our hands on with seeing everything. We have balances here that the school committee votes annually on whether to raise the max or leave it alone. The Deaconess School is the only one that's a little bit over at the moment in the checking because they're about to go on a field trip to, I think grade 1's going to Zeitarian Theater. So that will bring her balance back underneath, which is why you see her checking account was higher. They request how much to transfer over, then they write out the checks. The majority of it stays in the savings. The high school, obviously, they've got a lot of things coming up, graduations, proms, all kinds of stuff. Middle school, same type of situation. I don't know if you have any questions on the student activities, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Are there any questions? Jeff?
So the high school is above what they're allowed to have, right?
It's in their savings.
Well,
Yes,
Checking.
it is somewhat over, yes.
it's over, okay. So the policy is they can exceed it, but then they have to come back to us and ask us to say, it's okay that you exceeded it and perhaps raise it? I mean, is that the policy?
No, so what will happen is because of prom and all the events that are starting to come up, that money in savings will transfer over to checking and pretty much dwindle down to almost nothing. They'll spend it.
I understand. So is this a request to raise it, so?
No.
Okay.
Because
So-
it won't, the next time we talk, it won't be that.
Understand, but I guess, what does the term maximum balance mean?
To me, ending balance. So,
Okay.
to me, I would say ending balance,
Ending balance at the end of what?
school year,
School year.
fiscal year.
Okay. Is the superintendent have the same definition of what that means?
Well, I think one thing that the business manager brought up is it's been held at the town before, and now it's come over to us, which is giving us much more oversight than what we've had in the past. And so one of the things that the business office is working on is a manual to talk about student activities. We're going to be going through it with the administrators, because this is one of the areas that when we bring auditors in, they certainly spend some time looking at. and we want to make sure that everybody is in line. One of the things that I have asked for is for statements to be provided to the business office on a monthly basis, and just like you would balance your checkbook, we need to see where their balance is. The other piece that I would tell you about the high school, they're holding about, I believe it's $16,000 from the senior class for last year. They're getting ready to do some project outdoor with the cafeteria, the outdoor seating area, and because of the weather, we've not been able to accomplish that. Very shortly, when the weather breaks, there will be another check written, which will certainly bring this back down and keep us where we need to be. My preference is that we stay what the committee voted on at all times.
So that means that if they're about to exceed it, they have to come back to the committee to request that it be raised?
Well, no. I think that and we're having this discussion internally, but I think if you're about to exceed something and you don't have an outflow of cash in the very near future, we need to establish some kind of a holding system for a deposit to be made, just because the committee clearly voted on these balances, or these caps, and I think it needs to be followed.
So do I. And I'm not concerned, maybe it should be raised, but I think if we establish a cap, it should be followed.
I agree, and I think if we see that one area or several schools continue, it's a struggle to keep them at that cap, then I think absolutely it's appropriate to come back and say, here it is, here's the information that we can show on a historical basis that we're, that's where we would like to have it. I think it would give us validity to do that. To come to you at this point, I don't have the backup to do that.
I understand. Finally, access to these monies, okay? Is it accurate to say that two adults, including the principal, have to approve any expenditures from these accounts?
Yes. So the principal has the authority, the principal has the checkbook. We're reviewing that as well on whether we're going to continue to have manual checkbooks or whether we're going to run it through our accounting system. It's still on the fence on which way we're going to go. It certainly may delay the writing of checks if we run it through the accounting system. Right now, they can just write the check and then get the approval signed off on. So we're still.
When you say get the approval signed off, meaning by the principal?
By the principal, so that the club advisor would put in a request, and then it would go to the principal, and then it comes up to our office.
Okay, but the principal can't spend on his or own authority.
No.
Okay, so he or she is approving something that has been requested by an advisor, for example. And if he or she wanted to spend money just because they wanted to spend money, how would they go about doing that? They'd get the superintendent or the assistant superintendent to sign off?
They can't just spend the money. It's the students' money. So it's money earned by the students for the students. That's the only thing it can be spent on.
So the check literally requires two signatures?
The check, I don't believe, requires two signatures. The paperwork and the process does.
But someone has a checkbook.
Yes.
And the principal could sign a check for $10,000 and it would clear. He might be in trouble, but it would clear.
Not unless they've got the approval to move the money from the savings to the checking to cover it.
And the approval would come from whom?
It would come from the business office, and then it goes next door to the treasurer.
Understood. I'm just looking for appropriate controls, as you can
Right, and
obviously tell.
Right, and that's kind of what we're working on now. Like, we're going through the procedures and policies, because I think an audit in the past has said that we need to update systems, which is.
They would.
Well, that's why the beginning step was to get the accounts over to us.
I understand completely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was that transfer something you requested in order to have more control and oversight over these funds?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, are there any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next is a report of the superintendent.
Okay, bill warrants, I would ask for your approval. Along with the one listed, I have several others. The first one is March 9th in the amount of $150,890.14. Bill warrant on March 7th in the amount of $1,357.48. March 14th in the amount of $91,337.47 plus $593.70, and March 22nd in the amount of $329,275.10 plus $562.68. I would ask the committee to please approve those.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
I have a few other items to share with you. March 19th, there's an 8th grade parent meeting, and that means 7th graders going into 8th grade next year. So 8th grade next year, parent meeting, dual enrollment at the high school. And Global Ed International Night at Deacon's Cafeteria on March 21st from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. The famous, absolutely famous basketball game between the high school and the middle school on March 21st at 6 o'clock in the high school gym. And I know that the high school is really looking forward to trying to get the trophy back.
This is staff, correct?
Staff.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know. March 27th, the drama at the middle school presentation. Shows are at 7 and 9, and I am very sorry to say, if you do not have your tickets, you are not going. It is sold out. However, if somebody would like to come, there may be a chance for dress rehearsal. The DECA show is this weekend, as you were shared recently, on the 16th and 17th. It's at Saturday at 10 a.m. to 4 and Sunday from 12 to 4. If you're looking to do any home improvements, finding out about insurance, or just anything that has to do with home ownership, please come and support our DECA program. And that completes what I have to share.
Okay, thank you.
So-
I just want to clarify, sorry, Mike, the March 19th for the 7th grade parents, it's not just for dual enrollment, it's for all students who are going from 7th grade to 8th grade. Thank you. Go ahead.
Just wanted to say I'm so bummed I'm not going to make it to that basketball thing. I won't be. I'll be away. So I was looking forward to that all year. And it's a shame about the middle school play. I wish they'd do a couple days like the high school does with their plays. They'd make more money and everything.
Yeah.
It is 2 days?
Well, maybe with so many people wanting to see it next year, they'll expand.
All right, thank you. So we'll move on to the report of the school committee, recommendations from the policy review committee. So unfortunately, Laurie wasn't there, so we'll go ahead and go through the list. The first policy is purchasing. The changes to this policy were the new language. Does anyone have any questions about that one?
I'm good.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve that policy?
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained? Should we wait for him to come back? Do you want? Okay. 400, okay, all right, I was waiting for you to tell me, okay. The next one is disposal of obsolete equipment. The only change to this policy was the reference to the Massachusetts law. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. The next one is motor vehicle idling on school grounds. Again, the only change to this policy was the reference to the Massachusetts law. Are there any questions, comments? No?
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. Next is measuring body mass index. I believe the only change to this is a change in the law? No? No change, okay. Okay.
Move approval.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. Mike, we're doing policies, we're up to goals statement.
Okay.
Okay. There were changes to this policy, the highlighted areas. Are there any questions? And then the policy that was sent over today, this afternoon, was the final policy with the changes made. Yes, Jeff?
So, under leadership, could someone read leadership and citizenship? Could someone read to me how this is supposed to read?
Without, well, see, that's why I asked for this, so this is the one that came today, and so this is the final copy. That's exactly why, yeah.
Much better,
Does
thank
that
you.
answer your question? Okay,
Yes.
all right. Are there any other questions? Mike?
No.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said you had a question. Okay. Is there a motion to approve
So moved.
as amended?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, 500. Next is curriculum adoption. There were a couple of changes to this. Are there any questions? Mike?
Yeah. So I had a question, I guess it's the last sentence. It says, the Wareham School Committee will subsequently consider and officially adopt new programs and courses submitted by the superintendent when they constitute an extensive alteration in instructional content or approach. But all before that, it sounds like we're pretty hands-off. Is that how I'm reading that? So I mean, are we necessary in this? You know, like, it's just consideration. So in other words, when IB was adopted, how did that process go? So from the beginning, or at the end, or how?
It was introduced as part of a plan, and the school committee had to vote and accept it before we could actually enter into the process of becoming an IB school.
So that was probably part of the IB process, though, right?
Well, we would have done that anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
Or for the Envision Math program, the school, because it's a big program,
Yeah.
and it affects the whole entire school, we had to do a presentation on that program, and you all had to approve it before we were able to implement it.
It just seems by the letter of this that we're sort of like window dressing. It's like school committee vote, after we've already decided everything.
Well, I mean, the first sentence does say that the school committee will rely on its professional
Yeah.
staff to design and.
But I mean, do we have any formal, real say as you read it?
You do because of the budget.
We have the budget, sure, but I mean,
Because it's
that's just a number.
Because not necessarily, because the support that you provide when it's a big budgetary item, it needs to come before this board as a consideration because of the cost of, and because of what it means to the changes, to big changes within the district.
And the committee also votes on the course of study at the high school.
Well, I was going to ask. That's on my notes. So I mean, if we voted no on the course of studies, what happens?
Well, we would go back and
Yeah.
figure
Have to
out
go
what
back
was
and redo
going.
it.
Yeah, I mean that's actually very binding, right? There. But I remember, for example, you were looking to move. There was one year you were trying to move part of the 8th grade, I guess, to the high school.
Well, that was one of we were looking at different options.
Yeah, but you had really wanted to do it, but then decided against it. But I think that it was decided that you could have just done that unilaterally, I think, at that time. But I guess I don't like this. I don't like how we're just sort of, consulted or considered, and with major changes.
Would you like to be, are you saying you would like to have more consideration in major changes?
I'd like to be integrated. I'd like to, that it would just require it would require a school committee vote to, I guess, even, pursue. Why waste that time if the school committee is not interested in it?
So, let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say we wanted to eliminate French, bad example given the fact that kids want to go to Paris, but let's say we wanted to eliminate French and add Chinese to the curriculum. Emily's interested in that. I think you could probably take an online course in Chinese, but that's putting that aside.
But who's we? Who's we?
No, I'm saying the superintendent, the building.
Okay.
Not we, the school committee.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
Would that kind of change automatically come to the school committee?
It would, because that would be partially in the budget. And that would be part of our discussion that we would have starting in October about.
How would we see it in the budget such that we would know it meant French is being cut and Chinese was being added?
Because it affects the budget, is what
Excuse
we're
me?
saying. If it affects the budget,
Sounds like it might be this one teacher, same.
No, it couldn't be the same teacher.
I know it couldn't be the same teacher, but you'd be eliminating a French teacher and you'd be adding a Chinese teacher, and I don't think we'd see it in the budget.
Yeah, it'd be a
The
wash.
expense would be neutral. It would-
Right, so therefore we wouldn't see it.
Well, I just.
agree the course, when we approve the course catalog, right, the curriculum, that's an opportunity for us. There's no question about that.
Right. But I don't believe that we have ever substituted, as far as if we were cutting a program, you certainly would have been made aware of it before we added a new program, even if it was cost neutral.
And that's through the presentation of the course catalog.
Well, that or with the budget, because that would be something that would impact our students.
I understand, but I've seen a lot of budgets, and I guarantee you.
Cut any foreign language.
Excuse me?
We haven't cut foreign language.
Exactly, but my point is, I don't think I would have known, even if you were going to, as a result of the budget process. I would have known through Mr. Palladino, for example, presenting his courses. But the way I read this last sentence, I'm not sure, it said and officially adopt new programs and courses, but then it talks about that constitute an extensive alteration.
correct.
So is a new program an alteration in instructional content? So that sounds like, I guess, if you wanted to add Chinese, it would be new instructional content, and therefore would have to come before the school committee. Is that the way I should read it? Is that the way you interpret that language?
Well, it was the way it was written in 2004, so,
I
all the
wasn't-
way up through. So I'm just, it was language that was there originally in the policy. It makes sense to have checks and balances when you're talking about changing the life of how kids move through the school with the help of the school committee in making those decisions. If we're writing curriculum day to day, it's not necessary to have the school committee engaged in that conversation because we're experts in the field and doing what we do. But when you're talking about doing something substantial, it's important to have the committee be there to hear your plans or what you're considering and gather their support or not, or their concerns or their questions before you move forward. So
Don't get me wrong, I'm not
No, I'm just
suggesting-
saying that's kind of, to me, what it means.
I'm not suggesting the spirit of this has been violated. I'm not suggesting even the spirit, much less the letter, okay? I just wanted to give an example so that I could feel
Understand
comfortable that that's what this means.
Mhm.
And so going from French to Chinese would trigger the last sentence.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, I agree with what you say. I think, and no one disagrees with what you're saying.
No, I get it.
I just think that what you're saying, it's subjective. So it's not what the threshold for extensive change, or, would you agree, like, that part is subjective?
No, I think you said it better than I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only,
So what would be considered extensive is the question. And you'd like some clarity around what that means in the policy, yes?
is that do you think that that is the proper place to put that? I'm not sure. Should this refer to, I mean, there's a difference between policy and procedure. And so should this point to, is there a procedure that you follow when you're considering or adopting new curriculum?
Yes.
Would that be a better place for that?
The last paragraph, do you mean? Or do you mean the whole policy would be better as a procedure?
I don't know, that's a good question. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I was gonna move the table.
Yeah, I just said.
No. I moved the table.
Okay. So, there is a curriculum subcommittee, and maybe
No,
we could.
I moved the table, though. There's like,
Right, move to table the policy now.
yeah, but
Yes.
I think we need a second to.
You got a second.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
gotcha. All right.
Okay,
We also have another policy meeting, too.
We do.
So.
okay.
So, a table to the next meeting, right? So a time
Well,
certain.
till after the next policy
After-
review
yeah, after the
meeting,
next
yeah, so it'll
policy
be a
review
couple of
meeting.
meetings, right, right, okay.
But we need a plan between now and then.
If we make any changes, we'll let you.
Well, we need a vote on the move to table anyway, so.
We do,
yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
we'll vote on that. So we have a, go ahead.
The move to table requires that you specify the date.
The date on which we will bring this back to
Yes.
the committee?
Yeah.
That's why I was trying to say a time certain, yeah.
Next one's April
Yeah.
25th, maybe, but that's the next one.
Policy subcommittee.
Is it March 28th?
April 1st is the next policy review meeting.
So it should be after that.
Okay.
So
Yeah, yeah.
Just if there one scheduled, there wasn't another one scheduled after that.
No.
So April 25th is a date of a school committee meeting.
Okay.
So well, that will give us enough time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you
I
want?
don't think there's urgency.
No.
So would you make another motion to table
I
it
moved to
until then?
table this policy until the meeting of April 25th?
25th.
Yes.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Can I have one more question, though?
500. Sure, go ahead.
Just what is, it says this training will include the anti-bias approach. It's in quotes. What is that, the anti-bias approach?
There's a really important element when you're choosing curriculum materials to make sure that those materials are inclusive of all of the different populations that we represent here in school. So if you're choosing a literacy program or another such program, or you're choosing to use curriculum or books or novels or anything of that sort, you want to look through a lens of making sure you're considering the different people within your community, but also around the world when you're choosing that material.
Okay.
So it's important.
Yeah, it was in quotes. That must have meant
Yes.
something, you
No,
know?
yes.
Okay, so next is home and hospital instruction. There was no change to the policy on this one. There was only a change to the form that is used, and that form comes from DESE. I believe that was attached to the policy. Are there any questions on that one? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. Next is online instruction. Does anyone have any questions on this one? I do, actually. Sorry. We talked about this in the policy review meeting, and there was some new language. I thought that was going to be used. Was this the new language? In paragraph 2, at the end of paragraph 2.
I believe it was.
Right, okay. Some courses will be, is that what you have as a final copy? Some courses will include instruction and monitoring by a highly qualified educator.
I don't have some. I have courses will.
Courses will include instruction by a highly okay, yes, all right, thank you. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
500. Next is movies and films in the classroom. I believe there was no change to this?
8th grade to 7th grade.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. Next is the harassment policy. The only change to this was a change to a reference in a law.
And we substituted prohibits instead of precludes, right?
Prohibits, yes. In the second paragraph?
Yeah.
Yes. And the signature page, and that's something that, okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Did I already ask that? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. And finally, the alcohol, tobacco, and drug use by students. This is an update to language to reflect language in the law. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
So in the paragraph that starts, all statements made by a student during a screening, that's quite specific, shall not be disclosed except in the event of immediate medical emergency or in accordance with the law. So it would be really nice what the law said, because that's something you could drive a truck through, in terms of the privacy issue, confidentiality. Is this state verbiage that we really can't change?
Well, this is,
What is the law to which they're referring?
if someone is going to harm themselves, harm someone else, or if they're abusing.
Okay, so bottom line
And
is,
abuse.
to educators who need to know this, they know what that means?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the very next word says, de-identified results. That's an interesting adjective, de-identified. What is that supposed to mean?
I would assume that means the names are kept confidential, so the identity of the students is not.
That's
That
what it
would be,
means?
well, that would be my interpretation. That's certainly,
If that's what it means, that's fine. I've never read the word de-identified, but is that what it means?
De-identified is the process used to prevent a person's identity from being connected with information.
Thank you.
so if they just use the word confidential, or, yeah. that would-
Yeah, okay. It's an interesting term that I've now been educated about. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Is there a motion to approve that policy?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. So then we'll move on to any other business. Oh, I'm sorry, under school committee reports. So today, Michelle shared a letter with you by email that I asked her to send out because I had been in touch as an individual with Susan Gifford because I had attended a mask school committee event last week, and at that event, a legislator, not one of our legislators, but another Plymouth County legislator, had spoken about his effort to push forward the notion of adding $100, or bringing the incremental per student up to $100. His message was that when we come to the legislators and ask them for something, we need to have something specific that we're asking for. And so that's what his effort is. And he's drafted a letter, and he's asking for the support of other legislators. So I did reach out to Susan Gifford, and so we're gonna meet with her tomorrow morning. And so what I wanted to do tonight is just make you aware of this letter and ask if you agree that we could communicate support to her from the school committee. You're much better at this than I am, this whole state level thing. But I thought that was an important step that we could take. You know, we hear about the foundation budget and, you know, what's going on at the state level, and this is just a step that I could take, and now I'm asking you all. Mike?
Yeah, no, I'd certainly agree, but the number just sounds a little arbitrary. For example, I mean, what's the number we really need, right? Right? So, and I think that $1 increment in the letter, did it mention it would increase the state budget by like 39 million or something?
That's what it said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, they're gonna say, where's that gonna come from? And I'm like, I don't know, I don't care, you have all these mandates, you know, you're making us do everything and you're not funding it, just either take away the mandates or fund it, or fund us. But, I mean, on principle, sure, and more, yeah, I'll take any more I can get, you know?
Right. So I guess my understanding of it was, it's all, you know, a conversation back and forth, well, you know, which part are we gonna do? This is something specific. And that's what I liked about it. It's something specific. Yes, this is what we'd like to happen. And for Wareham, I think I'm not sure if I included it for Wareham, it would give Wareham $194,000 in extra funding for the next school year budget. So that's why, yes.
So I don't say this in any way cynically, okay? Let's be clear about that. But the good news is that things are happening with respect to the public education budgets, K through 12 in particular. And since things are happening, every legislator is gonna want to be perceived as behind something, okay? So while I agree with Mr. Flaherty, you know, more is better than less, right? House one says $20, this says $100, we'll take the $80 per student more every day, okay? But in fact, it's a lot more complex than that. And the actual legislation that's going to pass will be a lot more complex. And as I said the last meeting, there'll be special education funding will be involved, health insurance premiums hopefully will be involved. And this is just a legislator trying to show that he cares about this issue with some specific request and asking people to get behind it. The idea that this is specifically going to pass, that's a pipe dream. But do I respect the fact that he wants to get behind public education? Yes. Is there any harm in us saying, yes, we support this? Zero. So we should support it.
Okay. And with all due respect, last year at this time, we thought something was going to pass also, and that it didn't.
Exactly right.
And nothing happened.
They came really close, but as is so often the case in legislatures, they come really close, and then at the last moment, they fail. It looks like they're going to come closer this year. Whether they will actually result in something passing that's substantive, we'll see. But I'm cautiously, as they say, optimistic.
Okay, all right. So I guess all I was looking for is to be able to, you know, speak for the committee.
A non-binding resolution.
Exactly.
I will propose a non-binding resolution that we get behind Representative Cutler's proposal for a $100 increase per student for the it's hard to say this, for the 2020 budget.
Okay. Well, we're not going to take a vote tonight. I was just looking for.
You don't want to vote?
No.
Okay.
No, it wasn't on the agenda, so we're not going to take a vote.
Yeah,
I was just looking for a consensus.
Yeah, but if it was time sensitive, you could have done it. It was within the 48 hours.
Right.
But we can wait. If there's no rush, we can wait.
There'll be lots of other proposals that are coming out.
Well, there are hearings that begin next week, so that's why I was trying to meet with her before that.
Oh, and what's really interesting about this meeting is that Susan Gifford Williams is part of the very small minority Republican caucus for the legislature. And it will be really interesting if she supports it, because they tend to say no to things that cost more money. So it'll be really interesting for you to report back on the meeting.
Well, Mary and I are meeting with her, so
Good.
at our next meeting, we'll let you know how it goes.
And frankly, this really shouldn't have anything to do with R's or D's. It's just about the kids.
Absolutely.
Fund the schools, come on.
Except there's a finite pie, and that's the problem.
Tell them we'll volunteer to testify.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, unless anyone has anything else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night.